All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandra Kim. I'm the coordinator for the Los Angeles Area Chamber Foundation. Thank you so much for joining our RETAP workshop today for EMC. We have a great host that will be leading us with the workshop this morning. We're going to give it a quick housekeeping items before we get started. The session is being recorded, so everything will be shared at the end of the workshop along with the slide deck. We kindly ask that you stay on mute during the presentation, hold your questions until Q&A. And lastly, we love to know who's here, so if you could drop your name and company name in the chat when you have a chance. We got a great session lined up today. As a reminder, just feel free to drop down your questions and I'll save them for our Q&A. And then again, thank you for being here. And with that, I'll pass it on to the floor to Maurice with some intro.
No, not me. I'm not in yet.
No, you could speak through right now.
What?
You could speak through the phone.
Oh, through the phone.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, this is Maurice Kogan. I'm the program manager for the Grant RETAP program. And I'm having technical difficulty getting into Zoom myself, so I'm talking over the phone. But I'm delighted to have this opportunity to do one more of the in-depth workshops that we plan for the RETAP grant program. And this one deals with a very important topic that is not just open to companies, but to individuals who would like to perform or learn about how to perform an export function on behalf of a manufacturer that doesn't want to do it themselves. That's the whole key. There are many U.S. manufacturers that have exportable products, but don't want the hassle of exporting and do it themselves, so they don't do it, which leaves a terrible gap in our export capacity. We could be exporting a lot more if more companies were willing to do it themselves. But given the fact that 75% of manufacturers don't want to do it themselves, and maybe some of them would if helped by someone who could do it for them, that's the role of an intermediary known as an export management company. Now, an EMC, for short, can be one person or it can be a group of people under a company. The whole idea, though, it is, you think of it as the similar to a realtor in real estate representing the seller to find buyers. In this case, you're representing the unwilling manufacturer doesn't want to export. You're doing it for them to carry out all the functions that they otherwise would do for themselves. So this intermediary is a very powerful function, and it can be performed, as I said, by an individual. So this workshop is all about what you need to know and be able to do to function as that middleman, that realtor for international trade, that export management company. And I'm delighted that we have Carlos Sol as our presenter. I've known Carlos for probably 25 years. He's been in this EMC business for longer than that. He's an expert in the field. And he's going to go over in about 12 slides over the period of time that we have, 3 to 4 hours, with a break, everything you need to know and be able to do to function in that capacity. So I will turn it over to Carlos now. Carlos?
Thank you, Maurice, for the introduction. Good morning. My name is Carlos Sol. And before I start with this workshop today, I want to extend my sincere thanks to Maurice for his time, dedication, and vision in preparing the RETAP series of seminars. His efforts aim to empower more U.S. companies to find the strength and knowledge needed to successfully export to global market. Thanks, Maurice. Today we're discussing export management companies and export trading companies, two often overlooked but powerful business models. These organizations are hidden gems in the world of international trade. Not only do they offer owners an exciting and rewarding lifestyle, but they also play a vital role in helping American products reach every corner of the globe. Thank you again, Maurice, for your ongoing contribution to strengthen the U.S. exports and inspiring the next generation of global entrepreneurs. I also want to thank Sandra for coordinating this seminar and helping me to manage questions and timing. As I mentioned, my name is Carlos Sol. I've been living in Los Angeles for the last 40 years, and I'm planning to stick around until I finally lose my accent, which, let's be honest, it might take another 40 years. So you might need to bear with me for now. Today, I'm here to introduce you to a business opportunity that not exactly on everyone's radar, but it should be. I believe it should be. It is called the Export Management Company, and its close cousin is Export Trading Company. I like to think of them as small business with global dreams. To help you get the full picture, I have put together this workshop that will give you a solid understanding of how massive and diverse the global market really is, which countries are the biggest players in international trade, what export management company and export trading companies actually do and why it matters, and how they help not just your wallet, but the good old USA. And why also these businesses are a smart move for entrepreneurs like you. I will be speaking from personal experience, the wins, the mistakes, and the lessons I wish somebody had told me when I got started. I will mix it with practical tips and key info, so I hope you can walk away with some real value and a few good ideas. About an hour before the end of this workshop, I would like to do an exercise for everyone to participate. We will choose an item that we all can export together. I'm talking about exporting from A to Z, from deciding which item, finding the manufacturer, the distributor, going through all the logistic issues until you get the money in your bank account. Sandra, could you please put the first slide? Okay, how to start and grow an export management company, export trading company, and why they are a fast and cost-effective option to export. There are many reasons why only 25% of the US companies export. Among them, lack of knowledge and experience. Many companies, many export US companies, don't know where to begin, how to find buyers, what paperwork is required, or how to comply with foreign regulation. Exporting requires learning a whole new system, logistics, payments terms, trade compliances, foreign cultures. There are also complex regulations. Every country has different import rules, certifications, and documentation requirements. US exports must also follow export controls and sanctions, which can be confusing and risky if misunderstood. There are also payments and risk concerns. Getting paid from foreign buyers is a real concern for many US companies. These buyers might want credit terms, and sellers worry about non-payment. There are also currency fluctuations and familiar legal systems, and fraud risk makes some companies hesitant. There are also logistic and shipping challenges. Choosing the right freight forwarder, managing container loads, and understanding Incoterms can be overwhelming. Delays at customs, damage in transit, and miscommunications between partners can cost time and money. There are also cultural and language barriers. Misunderstanding can arise due to different languages, business cultures, and negotiating styles. Marketing and packaging might need to be adapted to foreign preference. It's not easy to find reliable partners and distributors, especially without a presence in the market. Vetting foreign partners take time, travel, and often local connections. And also, so many companies in the US lack the resources. Many small companies simply don't have the export staff, the budget for international market or systems to handle the export logistics, because exporting can be time consuming and distracting from domestic sales. So what might be the solution? An export management company. Why? Because we leverage pre-existing relationship with international buyers and freight forwarders, with readily available strong buyers with the right profile for the manufacturer. We can start operation almost immediately with minimal infrastructure and overhead versus creating a full department for a manufacturer. We also can avoid the long-term learning curve in the export arena, minimizing risk of trial and error. We can adapt to economic changes and trade policies more easily due to existing trade connections and market insight. We can navigate regulatory requirements, tariff, and compliance with expert support. And we can provide immediate value to suppliers looking for international distribution. So what do we do in order to make our money? The export management company, for an export management company, number one, we establish a relationship with a manufacturer or wholesale distributor in the US. We discuss the way we're going to work together, including negotiating price, territory, product registrations, communications, samples, etc. We sign an agreement. We look for quality buyers. We go to trade shows. We travel overseas. We send catalogs, prices, and samples. We communicate with buyers, if possible, in their language, which establish trust. We found solutions to all marketing, technical, and logistic issues. We get the orders, and we get paid regularly every month or every other month. So this is the procedure that we had to do in order to get paid. In summary, an export management or trading company is a fast, a cost-effective way to enter the global market. It minimizes risk, reduces startup costs, and leverage existing supply chain and industry expertise for quick and scalable growth. Also, for entrepreneurs looking to tap into international trade without heavy investment, this model offers a smart and efficient pathway to success. The difference between an export management company and an export trading company is basically the position of the merchandise. Our company do both. Sometimes we work on commission, and sometimes we buy and sell the products ourselves. So that's basically the difference. So when I say the export management company, I will also mean export trading company to make it easy. Let me start with something very clear. Now, this workshop is not about how to become the next Amazon or how to ship 10 billion widgets to 200 countries overnight. This is about to build a real, profitable business that operates in the international arena from your living room with a laptop, a good coffee, I love coffee, and a lot of grit. I will be speaking from the perspective of someone who started small, worked with a small and medium-sized company, and grew a business that moved over 2,500 containers to more than 10 countries and more than $60 million in sales, without ever owning a warehouse or having to wear a tie to the office. I noticed that many people that work in international trade fail to know certain important numbers that will give them a better idea when trying to understand tariffs or geopolitical situations among different countries. Because without those numbers, it's very difficult to articulate and understand the global economy. We cannot be detached of that reality. So let me take a few minutes for a global tour with numbers and facts that may make your head spin or at least raise an eyebrow. These numbers are all rounded just to give you a perspective of the global arena. Most of us are very familiar with gross domestic products, what is GDP, which is the sum of all goods and services produced by a country during 1 year. We have about 200 countries in the whole planet. And it will be interesting to understand how big is the global GDP. Now, the global GDP is, take it or leave it, about $100 trillion. So remember this number, 100 trillion. It can be a little bit more. It's not millions, it's not billion, it's $1 trillion. Now, the US economy is $30 trillion. So it's 30%. The US economy is 30% of all the world economy. China, to give you an idea, is about $20 trillion, but about 70 to 80% of the US GDP. Europe is about $20 trillion, about the same as China. And they have about 27 countries, the European Union. Canada and Mexico, our closest partners, their GDP is about $2 trillion each, or about 7% of the US economy. Now, just to understand, if the whole world is about $100 trillion, the US is 30, China is 20, Canada, the European Union is 20, Canada and Mexico are about 2 trillion each. That's $75 trillion out of the 100 trillions are those countries together. The other $25 trillion is divided among the other 170 countries. This can give you an idea how big is the sandbox. And it also means that it's a space for you to get into that market. Now, other important numbers that I believe we should know to understand better the international trade is what China exports to the U.S. China exports about $500 billion to the U.S., and the U.S. export only $150 billion to China. That's an imbalance of $350 billion every year. And because the dollar is the world currency, the bottom line is that while the US consumer gets stuff that make our life more comfortable, China earns dollars that can buy anything in the world, giving them a lot of power because they can buy US assets, they can increase the military, they can influence other countries' infrastructure, etc. The US keep learning hard lessons in international trade. And we have to understand that a little bit if we're getting into this business. In the 70s were the energy crisis. Our dependency on oil was a real issue. Today, we don't have that issue anymore. I don't know how many of you know, but the number one oil producer in the world is the US, far ahead of Saudi Arabia and Russia. In 2009 was a health crisis, COVID-19. The US realized that it was not producing respirators, masks, and other necessary items to curb the virus advance, and a lot of people die. I hope we learned that lesson. The certain medical equipment need to be made here or made by allied countries. And just recently, with the tariff crisis, we all realized that we don't control rare earth minerals, with which we make our most technological advanced chips. We need to do something about it. We need to understand these numbers because we cannot allow other countries to manipulate their currency and create red tape or invisible barriers that slow down the export of US products. In a sense, it is a bit of our job every day to do something about it. Well, I think it's enough facts and numbers to steer your mind and keep learning and understanding the big picture of international trade. Now let's go back to export management companies and how I decided to create one. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Argentina. I got a bachelor's degree in business, and I started my first company at 21, selling sugar to mom and pop stores. No metaphorical sugar, real sugar, in bags. I later worked for a multinational marketing company, think mayonnaise and oils, in Argentina. Then in 1881, I came to the US to learn English and ended up with a 2-year certificate in international trade and marketing from UCLA. From there, I joined a small import-export firm in metals and then became an export manager for a company named St. Ives Laboratory, a beauty company located in Chatsworth. I was in charge of finding and managing distributors in Latin America and the Caribbean market. So I had to travel extensively to that area. When St. Ives was sold to Alberto Colbert, another big company located in Chicago that make probably, the products, the BO5 shampoos, I lost my job. And I did what most people do when that happened. I panicked. I was so worried I couldn't do anything for a week, I remember. Then I decided to run and run and run just to let it go, that stress. And I felt like Forrest Gump going from place to place until I got exhausted. I finally picked up the phone. I called every place I could for a job. And for 6 months, I tried without success until one day, a friend introduced me to a company that wanted to export their health and beauty products to Latin America. And I said, well, I can help. My wife joined me in handling the orders. And in the beginning, a friend helped me with some finances. And I got to work out of a home office with more ambition than furniture. Let me tell you the story that started all. When these friends introduced me to a company, with this new company that I wanted to export, the company was located in Chicago. It was a very successful company in the cosmetic and health and beauty. They were producing shampoos, creams, lotions, shaving cream, and cleaning products to discount stores in the US. It was a very good match for me because of the price-quality relationship. The value was good, and they were attractive and selling very well in the US. I started connecting buyers in Latin America with this manufacturer, acting as an agent representative. And within a couple of years, I was making more money than I had at my previous job, enjoying my work, paying off my debt that I accumulated during 6 months without working. And I was happy. It was good. Then the owner of the company called me one day and said, Carlos, you are selling fine, but to be honest, you are not selling well enough. This might happen in international trade sometimes, you know. So he said, I'm going to be transferring all your buyers to my friend, a wholesaler in Miami, effective immediately. I was shocked. I got no contract to protect me, and another tough lesson to learn. By this time, I asked myself better questions. And one of them was, how can I keep my buyers? I had built a strong relationship with them, treating them as exclusive distributors and helping them with all the paperwork needed for their local authorities. And I know I could trust them, and many of them were loyal to me. So I asked them to contact the owner of the company and insist that they wanted to work with me, not with the wholesaler in Miami. And 9 out of 10, they made a call. They asked for the owner. Look, they want to work with Carlos. We don't want to work with this wholesaler in Miami. And the owner say, no. We're going to be transferring everything to the company in Miami. Once again, I was back on ground zero, but I wasn't giving up. I had 2 cards left to play. First, I asked my distributors to keep sending the orders to me, and they did so. So I started accumulating orders. My second card was the international manager of that company in Chicago. It was his son-in-law living in Los Angeles. I had built an excellent relationship with him, and he knew I was doing a good job. One day I told him I have $100,000 worth of orders ready. What do I do? Because these people don't want to work with a wholesaler, because they know the wholesalers normally sell to everybody. And these people were doing a very good job in each of the country, and that's the way I planned it from the beginning. So he told me to wait. I guess he made a phone call to the owner of the company. And the next day he told me, keep sending the orders to me in Los Angeles, not to Chicago. Well, 20 years later, I still working with that same company, with the same people, and we keep expanding to other markets. Only 4 years ago, the owner sold the company. I worked with the new company for a couple of years, but it was not the same relationship. Buying company already had their own people, had a different system. And I started working with other exporters. Now, what is the lesson here? Well, number one, don't put all the eggs in one basket. I only had one company when I started, and I put everything on that company, and I almost lost it. Lost it. I was lucky enough to keep it because I developed a good relationship with my buyers overseas. I developed a good relationship with the number 2 guy in the manufacturing company, the son-in-law. And I believe I developed a good relationship with the secretary of the owner of the manufacturer. That in a certain way steer him to change his mind and give me a second chance to continue with that company. And for 20 years, I kept going with them. Believe it or not, the owner never acknowledged me back. But I keep working with him and developing his products. And that allowed me to keep growing, make a good living for many years, and be happy with the company that I thought I was going to lose. So things can happen like that when you have a small company like ours. So I'm going to tell you another story. And this is why an export management company has certain advantages over the wholesalers. There's a company named Dr. Fresh. I worked with them for many years. They told me they hired me as an export management company because they got issues. They lost all the sales in Latin America and they didn't know why. So I started investigating what happened. And they used to have an export department, and the person that was selling to them tried to sell to everybody in each country. And if you don't understand international sales, that can be a problem. People are very jealous when in these countries are small. They know each other, the business know each other very well. And when you start putting a lot of people in one country, nobody makes money. And that can cause the problems with the export company. Yeah, in the beginning, they're going to be selling a lot of products. But at the end, they might lose everything. And that's what happens. So what I did, I started again. I identified new distributors. And I told them that I was going to work with them. And they were going to be exclusive in a sense. And we regained sales. In less than a year, we went back almost to $1 million in sales. And I believe that's one of the best ways to exporting products. Over the years, I learned how to find new distributors and manufacturers without spending any money, or very little money. I discovered how to be exclusive without asking for exclusivity, how to add agents to help me find new deals, how to travel effectively and enjoyably, how to handle difficult situations, and how to protect my business relationship. And I had mentioned my company, Connections Unlimited, has been shipping over 2,500 containers. And the way I did it was also internally. I created systems for sales, for accounting, for logistics, of the legal area, of the CRM, the customs relationship manager. And I designed standard operating procedures. Some worked, some didn't. Some exploded in a spectacular fashion, which, lucky for you, make for great learning lessons today. So let me clear, this is my journey. It's not a blueprint. Don't try to be like me. But I will explain you that this can be one way of creating and managing an export management company. The only thing that I can offer today is hard-earned lessons and a proven path that might be your ticket to a new life. Now, when I started, I have only one goal: build a business that let me live like I was a semi-retiree forever. I wanted to work less than 8 hours a day, 4 to 6, travel from time to time, and work out of my house. This is going to sound like a sales speech, but it's true. That means no inventory, flexible hours, low overhead, and enough income to prioritize what truly matters: health, family, friends, relationship, and experiences. Money, yes, of course, but not at the expense of my life, and definitely not at the expense of my sanity. Every year I plan my calendar around the things that I wanted to accomplish in my life, not out of ego, but out of survival. I put health to sleep, playing sports, maybe steak here and there, then family, money, the money I need for retirement, investment, expenses, vacation, and then how much money I need to get every year to accomplish my goals, and how much do I need to work every day doing that. If the order flip, and for too long, I feel stressed, burnout, the weird feeling of success without fulfillment. I did not want business to become a job. So here's my suggestion: design your export management company, not just as a business, but as a lifestyle, one that works for you and not the other way around. So stay curious, keep up with global news and tech trends, adopt in mind a constant and never-ending improvement, and be flexible. Sometimes you lose money to preserve a relationship, but believe me, losing a little bit of money is worth it. The number one slide, Sandra, please. Sandra? Thank you. So let's start with you. We're talking about how to create an export management company. Before you go looking for overseas buyer or impress manufacturers at trade shows, we need to find out if this business actually fit your personality and life goals, because this ride isn't for everyone. It's kind of more like an Indiana Jones with a suitcase than a Shark Tank in a suit. Ask yourself, are you an entrepreneur? Do you have a vision? Can you collaborate with people from completely different culture without assuming everyone will speak English or understand your sarcasm? Are you open to hopping on an airplane, dealing with customs agents, strange people, and even strange food? Are you bilingual, or at least menu fluent in another language? Do you know someone across the ocean who owes you a favor? Are you a natural salesperson, the kind of listen and ask smart questions and know when to close? Please, if you have any questions at this point, let me know. I forgot to do the same when I finish the first slide. Is there any questions for people so far, Sandra?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Actually, Rhonda just asked if there's any trade shows going on.
Yes, and we're gonna get to that pretty soon. There are many. So what might the business be for you? An export management and trading company is perfect if you love sales, hate routine. You enjoy juggling 10 things and you still have to call your mom. I want a business, if you want a business that runs from home, a hotel in Costa Rica or Dubai, you want flexibility, no work in pajamas every day, flexibility, but work hard when you travel, flexibility. You want the challenge of dealing with chaos and still somehow get paid. You are good at solving problems and enjoy being with people from different cultures. Because you will face difficult people, manufacturers who ghost you, they don't respond today, they don't respond tomorrow, and suddenly you're the best friends after you land a buyer. You're going to find distributors that promise the moon and they pay you in paper clips. Jet lag that lasts longer than the relationship. But this is a big one. If you build it right with systems, relationships, and grit, it can give you a beautiful mix of purpose, profit, and personal freedom. Let's talk about traveling. I have noticed over the years that many American business owners and management aren't exactly thrilled about the idea of traveling overseas. They are comfortable with the American way of doing things and prefer the predictability of the local market. Overseas travel, on the other hand, is often seen risky, especially if they don't speak the language or aren't familiar with the culture. And that's exactly where the adventurous entrepreneur gain an edge. Global business reward those willing to step out of their comfort zone. So here's my advice. Make sure your passport is current because sooner or later you will hop into an airplane. And trust me, if you do this business sooner or later, you will have a story just like the one I'm going to tell you right now about traveling. Let's rewind 25 years ago when I landed some account in Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados. My assistant at that time, who also happened to be my wife, booked me a series of flights from Los Angeles to Miami, Miami to Trinidad, and Trinidad to Barbados. She found a cheap deal and approved it without asking too many questions. After all, I was very frugal. What I didn't know was the airline system in the Caribbean had a bit of, let's say, a colonial throwback. There were essential two tiers of services, one for the British nationals and another, shall we say, more rustic option for the locals. And people like me traveling on a budget. After a couple of productive days in Trinidad, visiting my buyers, touring stores, meeting with retailers, it was time to fly to Barbados. I arrived at the airport at Port of Spain in Trinidad just before midnight. The flight was delayed, and when I finally time to board, it was finally time to board. I walked across the tarmac alone under a humid and starry sky. And that's when things got interesting. Waiting for me was not a standard jetliner, but a tiny 10-seat World War II era propeller plane, being loaded with crates of live chickens. The entire crew, pilot, co-pilot, baggage handlers, were from East Indian descent, very friendly and welcoming. One of them smiled and said, "Find a good seat." And I didn't understand what it means for finding a good seat until I realized all the seats were made of canvas sling and many were torn. So finding a good seat was relative. I found one and it looked less dangerous than the other and sat down, surrounded by chickens quacking like they were staging a protest. I looked around, I thought, what am I doing here? What I have done? I am sure this is not what really Coca-Cola do their international sales. My thoughts were interrupted when the pilot started the engine with cough and smoke and sparks like something out of the old world movie. And he calmly announced, "We're turning off the lights momentarily to give the engines more power for takeoff." At that moment, I said a silent prayer and I promised never complain about economy class again. The rest of the flight was thankfully uneventful, except for flying low over the ocean in a rickety chicken-filled plane by the Bermuda Triangle. I made it to Barbados, made the sales, and I got a story that I will never forget. So remember, traveling overseas might be uncomfortable and predictable, and occasionally poultry feel. But it's also where the magic happens in international trade. So be ready. Opportunity doesn't always show up in a jet. A word of caution. If you're broke, in a panic, and think export management company is a get-rich scheme, quick scheme, please take a breath, take a deep breath, and go and watch an episode of Shark Tank. Then come back when you have some basic cash flow to support yourself while building the export management company. Make sure that you're bilingual or willing to learn the basic of another language, or you are tech savvy enough to take an old generation export management company to a new level. I'm gonna go, I don't know what time is it, 9 o'clock. I'm gonna go into slide 3 now. Laying out the foundation, building your export management company the right way. Now, what do you really need to start and create an export management company? Basically, you need direction, a north that will guide you while navigating unknown oceans and territories. And for that, I like to follow the book of Michael Gerber, The E-Myth Revisited. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's a phenomenal book that every entrepreneur really should read. Again, the book is from Michael Gerber, The E-Myth Revisited. He talks about the importance of the dream, the vision, the purpose, and the mission of every international company that I define as follows. The dream is, what if thousands of small US companies could sell their products worldwide, creating more freedom, prosperity, and global connections through trade? The vision, to build a replicable system, an export management company model that empower entrepreneurs to manage global sales for U.S. manufacturers and brands. The purpose, to help small business grow, creating minimum global relationships and make U.S. product accessible across the world, while giving export management owners a life of purpose, profit, and independence. And the mission, to teach, guide, and support entrepreneurs with the tools, training, and consulting needs to launch and grow successful export management companies, built on proven strategy and real-world experience. Now, to build an export management company, you have to have those objectives. You have to have a legal structure. I started my company as a sole proprietorship. I don't recommend that, but I did it for a few years. I finally transitioned to an X corporation. So I recommend you to start with an LLC or an X corporation. You have to understand the risk in the area that you are going to build your export management company. I also have some basic infrastructure in my company: a laptop, a phone, a website, a scanner, email, accounting system, and a reliable CRM that I created. You have to have a business identity, simple website, email address, domain name, and digital business cards. And people, you might start solo, but don't overlook your hidden team, a virtual assistant, a bookkeeper, even your teenage grandson who knows AI better than you. Also, you need to get insurance. You have to, as an export management company, it's very important that you get at least $1 million in liability insurance. It's a cheap protection and often your first line of defense in international trade. One good company is the Hartford Insurance. You also need an accounting system. I use QuickBooks. Communication, I use Outlook, Excel, PDF, WhatsApp, and Zoom. So these are the systems that you need in order to make sure that your company have the necessary elements to work as a company. Always focus on progress, not perfection. Forget about the branding perfection. Focus on sales, systems, and services. Trust me, the buyers won't care about your fancy logo. They want products that sell, clear answers, and a reliable partner. Slide number 4, please. Is there any questions so far?
No questions at the moment.
Okay. Now, we're going to identify products and services, what to sell and why. So now that you have your company already formed, so what am I going to sell? That's a big question. And this is where a lot of people freeze. Too many options, not enough direction. By choosing the right products and service, it's not about what you like. It's about what the market needs, what you are good at, and what's realistically exportable. There are basically two approaches to find the right products for an export management company: the sharpshooter approach or the shotgun approach. In an export management company, you don't do things the same way as a manufacturer that wants to export their product. A company that wants to export will do a full-blown market analysis, examining different countries and different export markets before they venture into a particular one. They will look for statistical information about how well similar products are doing in different countries. And they also will looking for countries where their products are growing or they are in decline. They look for political and economic stability of such country. And they look for the reliable distributors that can help them export. This approach will take quite some time, effort, dedication, and money. And it's a good approach for companies that have both time and money, but not everybody has. As an export management company, we have a completely different approach. I work based on my ability to discover and find unique US companies that have attractive items in the price range for the market that I target. I am also looking for companies that do not have a limit, that do not have or have limited export capabilities, or companies that are looking for entering into countries that they are not selling yet. So my strategy can go from a shotgun approach to a sharpshooter strategy. I use both. Ideas or products come from different sources, like a connection overseas, or walking into a retailer store in the US and look at their item. I am always with my radar open, looking for opportunities at every place I go. In my case, because I'm interested in beauty products, I normally check Costco, Trader Joe's, Dollar Tree, Five and Below, TJ Maxx, and others. I look for the products at the shelf, I flip them around, and I see who manufactured them. You will be surprised how many leads you can find just reading the back of labels and finding out more about the company and market than in the internet. So what I do, I see the product, I like the product, I like the price, I flip it around, I look for the manufacturing company, I check them out on the internet, and I contact them. Besides health and beauty, which is what I do, as well as cleaning products, there are a lot of hot categories of products to sell. For example, the US is very good at selling specialty good and beverage, organic granola, gluten-free snacks, barbecue sauce, craft beer, nuts, hot sauces, etc. And they sell it to promising markets like Japan, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, all the Middle East. They are very interested in US products. Mexico, American-style snacks and convenient foods are very well received. Again, health and beauty products, natural skincare, vitamins, lotions, deodorants, beer oil, promising markets, Brazil. Huge demand for natural beauty and wellness products. Vietnam, a growing middle class, investing in self-care. China, high trust in US health supplements and baby care. Colombia, active market for the US branded personal care products. Another category are pet products. Healthy treats, grooming brushes, collars, travel carriers, organic shampoos. There are many promising export markets like South Korea. It's a booming pet industry, especially for dogs. Germany, high spending pet owners, value, quality, and safety. Chile, raising pet owners and interest in premium US goods. I've been selling quite a number of products to Chile in the pet area. Another area is houseware and home decor. Designer, kitchen tools, scent candle, eco-friendly cleaning tools, handmade linings, promising countries. Canada, they're very good. They're very good because favorable logistic and appreciation of U.S. brands. Australia, they demand for innovative kitchen and home products. The UK, interest in American home decor and lifestyle products. Panama and Costa Rica, growing middle class with taste for U.S. style. Now, when you're choosing a product to export, be aware of dangerous goods. For example, in my area of health and beauty, in the beginning, I started selling all the products. I didn't realize that nail polish remover is considered a dangerous good. And because it's flammable, it's classified as class 3, and it's regulated by the U.S. Department of Transportation. That means that they can be easily ignited by heat, spark, or open flame. So I realized transportation was more expensive. Every time I had this company buying my products and they picked the nail polish, well, everything was more expensive for him. So at one point, we had to let it go, that item. Also, nail polish, like any other flammable product, must be properly packed, marked, and labeled. You need placards to be put on trucks so they can move the merchandise from one time to another without being stopped. So make sure that when you pick up the product, you pick a product that is that don't have these issues. So be selective, be very selective. Start with something simple, an item that you understand well, and as you gain experience, you can move to more complex products. Focus on specific category and countries you feel comfortable with. That's how you start building your export business with clarity and confidence. As I mentioned before, I started health and beauty because I worked for a beauty company. And I knew from my experience that it's a growing market globally. It's relatively easier to export health and beauty products than food or electronics. It's not a heavily regulated, but it's still complex enough that my knowledge gave me a competitive edge. I also knew one important thing: the more regulated a product is, the harder it is to export. Now, we're going to be talking about product registration. A hidden barrier. Everyone talk about tariff, but very few people they talk about regulations you face when you export overseas. I'm going to give you a breakdown on different items so you understand what I mean. For example, toys do not require registration unless they are for children. In that case, you have to make sure that the products are safe for them. Health and beauty products are moderate regulated because they require certain documentation. Food is more strictly regulated. FDA they have strict rules also on refrigeration, shelf life, allergen, etc. These not tariff barriers are what I call the hidden friction in international trade. So knowing how to navigate product registration make your export management company instantly more valuable. So what do you need in order to register a product? If you're working with health and beauty products, you might need a certificate of free sale, a good manufacturing practice document, a quality quantity formula and certificate of analysis, stability text, and MSDS, manufacturer safety data sheets. And we're going to be talking a little bit about this. What is a certificate of free sale? It's a certificate that issued by the Chamber of Commerce, normally by the Chamber of Commerce, that indicate that the products that you're making are freely sold in the country that are manufactured. While some countries require, let's say you're going to export to Costa Rica, and they ask you for a certificate of free sale. Why? Because they don't want you to sell products of less quality than the products that are being made in the US. They understand in Costa Rica the products made in the US, they are sold in the US, they are of certain quality and they have been approved by different organizations in the US. So they want the same quality. A certificate of free sale indicates that the product that you sell them, they're freely sold in the US and they're the same quality that you're going to export to that country. So they feel comfortable that they're receiving the right products. Another document that countries require are good manufacturing practices. There's a certificate that is required, and these are sets of practices that manufacturing companies need to follow. There are strict rules and procedures, the way they keep their warehouse, they clean their equipment, how to handle packaging, sanitary procedures, management, audit, etc. So the companies in the US, they normally work these good manufacturing practice and get for specific organizations this certificate, which is very important. And many countries require this certificate to make sure that the company has the highest standard of production. Another document that countries require are the quality quantity formula and the certificate of analysis. For example, in a shampoo is made of different ingredients. The quality quantity formula indicates the percentage of the ingredients that are part of that formula. And the certificate of analysis, they require that, it's also a certificate that require that the products are made in a way that can be, I would say the products are stable through the time. They don't separate ingredients from one another. They have some specific volume inside, etc. These documents are made for they're made by the manufacturer's lab. And you might need it, the same as the stability test. And the manufacturing safety data sheet that indicates mainly how to transport the products, well, the temperatures that the products can support, and what happens if somebody ingests the products. So they make sure that you have a set of rules that the country that you are export to, they understand how to take care of the products if anything happens. And here's the kicker for export management companies. Most manufacturers hate doing this. They don't want the headache. And that's where you come in. If you know how to handle product registration, you are just not a representative. You are a strategic partner for the manufacturer. Also, on the legal side, you have to know how to handle trademarks. The exporting companies must always handle the trademark through you, the representative, or directly. Do not let the buyer handle a trademark. And I'm going to tell you a story. Many years ago, I was working for a health and beauty products company based in Carson, California. I met them at a trade show. And one day the management approached me and with a special mission. He told me, Carlos, we lost our trademark in Argentina. We need to get it back. They had tried negotiating before with the Argentinian company with no success, and they were very concerned because they could not sell the products. The US company made a mistake of giving the Argentinian company the right to register the trademark because they were going to market their product. But at the last minute, they decided not to do it. Now they were asking for an exorbitant amount of money to get it back. And without it, the US company couldn't legally sell their brand in one of the South American largest beauty markets. So what I did was I did some research on the company. I picked up the phone, and what it follows was not a legal battle. It was a business negotiation. I contacted the Argentine company and that now owned the trademark. I introduced myself as the export manager for the Carson company. And at the beginning, they were very cautious. In Latin America, these kind of things can feel personal because they don't like to be approached by a lawyer or a business person. They prefer to be talking just to a person. Their business culture is different from ours. It's lower pace, the importance of trust, and often a preference for long conversation about soccer and politics of the world before we spoke some hard numbers. I listened to their concern, acknowledged their legal position, and make sure they felt respected. I didn't push it until I felt comfortable that we could find some common ground together. Eventually, we reached a mutual beneficial agreement. They would transfer the trademark back to the US company in exchange for a reasonable compensation, a fair price that respects both their efforts and our brand value. So no lawsuits, no threats, just two companies finding a practical solution across cultures. That experience taught me that in international trade, cultural sensitivity is just as important as contracts. If I had gone in aggressively, we probably would have lost the chance entirely or paid a lot more money. It also showed that even sometimes when something appears lost, a door may still be open if you know how to knock. I am very proud of this negotiation. I still have a letter of recommendation from the company in Carson. So, as you can see, the legal side of the business, which are trademarks and product registration, is a big part of the export management company. And if you know how to do it, that will be an asset for your company. Another time, another example, a real example, we wanted to be sued by a consumer in Colombia. They threatened us to go to the press because one person started losing their hair. He claimed he was losing his hair. We were selling shampoo. We were doing a private label shampoo for this big supermarket in Colombia. And this person came out and said, look, I'm losing my hair. And so, because we were selling a lot of containers to these companies, it was a very difficult situation. My distributor at that time in Colombia felt they panicked. They didn't know what to do. They didn't want the press to be on them. So I realized after talking with this person that it was not necessary to do anything else than giving them 24 bottles of shampoo and a case of conditioner. And with only that, he signed a release, and that was the end of it. So you need to answer with calm and pragmatism, at the same time that you protect the relationship and your reputation. You have to realize in international trade that the legal systems in the US and the legal system in other countries are sometimes completely different. This is the case for Latin America. In the US, we have the common law system, where in Latin America, we have the civil law system, which is influenced by the Romans and the Napoleonic codes. In the US, we rely heavily on precedents or past court decisions. In Latin America, we rely on written codes and statutes. Less emphasis on court precedents. In the US, the judges interpret the law and often make laws through ruling. In Latin America, where we apply the civil, or the countries that have the civil law, judges apply written law more strictly, and they do not make law. So you have to understand that. I understood that this person was not going to create a big fuss, that they only wanted to be recognized, and just few bottles and shampoo and conditioner will do the job. It's not the same in most cases, but the way is to try to solve the problem at the beginning before it gets bigger. Understand what is the real cost of the issue, and try to solve it the best possible way. So, are we going to make a break, Sandra?
Yeah, I think a 15-minute break would be great. If we could all come back at 10:35.
There were a couple of questions, if you want to take those now. Marianne Burke asked a couple of questions, and Julio asked the questions. It might be easier if you unmuted them so they could orate the question better than trying to read it from chat, if you're still there.
Well, I am, but I cannot read it very well. If you tell me the questions, that would be better, Maurice.
Yeah, Marianne, are you there?
Yeah, hi Maurice. Yeah, hi Carlos. So just
Hi.
curious, do EMCs do you usually sell to, do they usually sell in general to distributors overseas, or direct to companies overseas, or direct to consumers, or does it depend? And I'm just curious what your experience was, how you sold it.
Well, you're a little bit ahead of, remember, this is a 4-hour workshop. I will be dedicating quite some time on that particular question. So please bear with me. I will get there because
Okay.
by the end, you're going to have the full picture. Right now, we just started. We just barely just started. Okay.
Great. And that could lead to my next question too. You touched on it a little bit already. You were saying kind of, how to identify what market and what your product line would be. Are you going to get into that a little later? I'd love to hear your experience about how you whittled it down to identify where to go and what to sell exactly.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna touch a little bit more about that. For me, it was a matter of my previous experience with the company in the health and beauty arena. So you never know how do you start. The export management company is a completely different approach from from a manufacturer trying to export their products. You're always looking to uh, to put in your favor all your knowledge, all your talents, your capacity of see opportunities around you, and translate those opportunities in sales to other countries. So again, I started because somebody asked me to rep for a company. But then, when I wanted to continue increasing my business, I started looking for other avenues of getting more manufacturers. In this case, we're looking at products, going to different retailers. Dollar stores for me were a good source because I wanted to find products that were good enough for consumers, but knowing that Latin America don't have the same income per capita than the US, if you find a product with a very decent value, you can export in big quantities. But I explore also uh, the food area, but I realized there were too many. I would say it was a lot more difficult than selling shampoos and creams and lotions and makeup products, because even though those products you're using it in your body, like your hair or your skin, but the legal requirements are less stringent than if you eat the products and put it in your body. So I decided to go to products that will be enough challenge that they need product registration. I didn't go, for example, for toys. Toys you don't need to have product registration. You just sell it like you're selling it from within the U.S. But the drawback is anybody can do that. So there are a lot of companies in that business selling toys. So it's more difficult to get in, and the competition is greater. But health and beauty, because they had that barrier of product registration, but it's not as bad as food products, for me was the ideal balance. And that's the reason I started with these type of products. And the US is actually pretty good in doing health and beauty products.
I think it may have been Julio, but let's address this question because it's you probably won't get to it later. It was the question of how important is it to be able to speak the language of the country or countries you're exporting to. Now, bear in mind you speak Spanish fluently, but you don't speak Korean or German or Swahili or many other languages. What is the disadvantage of conducting business in English rather than trying to master every conceivable language?
Well, you don't need to master any conceivable language. like you said, but you try to put everything in your favor. If you speak a particular language, you will probably go to countries that speak that language. So you can go to England, Europe, Australia, if you speak English, Canada. There are a lot of countries that speak English. And the one that don't, most of the people that are in international trade, they have a basic understanding of English. Of course, if you speak in in their native language, you will have more opportunities to understand more things, but that doesn't mean that you cannot do business unless you speak that particular language. Also, technology got helped lately a lot. You can actually get a little machine, or maybe you can even have it in your phone that translate on the spot wherever the other person is saying. So it is not indispensable to understand another language, but it's better or it's easier if you do.
Okay. I think if there are no other questions,
Yeah, I have a question if you don't mind.
go ahead.
So, Carlos, you had ventured into beauty products because it really provided you, I think this is maybe an accurate summation, um, a less friction laden path as opposed to, food or something that requires a lot more regulation. And also beauty products are repeatable. So, each month they'll probably be importing product or every other month, as you said. But are there other, could you think of other types of products that would maybe be higher ticket items? Like, for example, I've seen that people do medical devices, but a hospital gets a medical device and they probably will keep it for a couple years and there's not too much depreciation. So is it better to find products that are higher ticket items that you can move a couple times, or is it better to focus more on things like health and beauty that are needed in other countries? They have high volume and repeatable sales. What's the trade-off, I guess?
Well, believe it or not, I investigate briefly getting into selling other type of products, including uh, products that are sold in hospitals and I would say medical products in general. But I didn't have the expertise. And believe it or not, after you pick a particular category of products, it is not easy to change and get into a new one. I tried several times, like I mentioned, in food, but I realized it's a different world. It's a completely different world. So you have to make sure when you get your fresh products that that most of the time you're going to stick in that area uh, as an export management company. Also, you're going to gain a lot of understanding of that particular category, and that's what you need in life. You cannot move from one thing to another that easily. Like same as Google trying to move to another area that they're not familiar with, they will not do it. In international trade, is more or less the same thing. You got to make sure that you understand which product you want to pick because you're going to make money out of that category. And you need to understand that business very, very well. So, but business, medical products are a big category in international. If you think that you like that category, explore it. Explore it. Find out how big it is, which are the countries that they buy the most, and you're going to be very surprised that it might be a very good opportunity for you, that category. Find out which companies in the US or any other country that are making those products. And we're going to see in the next few slides how to go about, get that company, sign a contract, how to find the buyers, and how to do all the logistics. So bear with me for the second half on that one.
Okay, any other questions? We can take, how long, 10-minute, Sandra, did you say?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, so,
Ten
be back about, 10 of.
Okay,
Great, thanks.
very good. Thank you, Maurice.
you.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay, so let's continue. Well, we're talking about finding the right product or category of products. This is a very important decision because you're going to be staying in that area probably. I mean, I would not say the rest of your life, but cannot say that. But if you have an expert management company, you will have to know very well your area, and that will be your area of expertise. So pick the product or area of products that you want to work with very careful, because not only the time you're going to invest and put on it, but also it will have to be something that you like. Imagine the people that you're going to be talking to with that particular product or category of products. Because again, once you picked a particular product, you're going to continue working on those. There are so many products, so many categories that it's mind-boggling. I remember when I went to my first trade show, and we're going to be talking about that pretty soon. My mind couldn't compute how many different businesses and areas you have in front of you. So take your time, look for growing and emerging markets, look for innovative products and the right value of those products. And if you do that with care, they will take you a long way. They will really take you a long way. Because after you pick a category, you need to find the right manufacturer. And we're going to go to this slide, number 5. And the right manufacturer is your first critical relationship. As I mentioned before, a friend introduced me to a company, and that is the way I started my business. But after a while, I needed to add more manufacturers, and I put together a step-by-step procedure to start looking for them. For an export management company, the manufacturer is the most important relationship, following shortly by the distributor. Why is so important? Because if you pick the right one, you will get into a lot of countries and you will sell to a lot of distributors. So putting the right time is fundamental. I lost a lot of time with flaky manufacturers that I did not get anywhere because of their management style, because the way they tried to negotiate. I could see that I was not going anywhere. And some of them I thought I could do well, and nothing happens. So picking up the right manufacturer is the basics of your business, at least for an export management company. It is not only about getting the lowest prices, but it's about building a relationship that can handle logistics, trust, exclusivity, product issues, and even misunderstanding, because it's going to be many. So make sure that you put enough time in getting the right manufacturer. As I mentioned before, the difference between an export management company and an export trading company that lie the key different lie in how the transaction is structured. My company do both. Sometimes I work on commission basis. Sometimes I buy and sell, depending on the company, depending on the opportunity. So you have to be ready to negotiate with the manufacturer at both. Most of the export management company typically work on commission, representing the manufacturer and earning a percentage of the net sales. As for trading company, they buy and resell the products, taking legal ownership, invoicing under your own company, not the selling company, not the manufacturer, but under your own name, and potentially assuming more risks because you are the one that's going to get paid, not the manufacturer. In my case, I often act as an export trading company, but I don't need a warehouse or my own capital. Here is the way I structure it. I use the manufacturer's warehouse to stage and ship goods. I ask the buyer for a 30% in advance and a 30% upon delivery or picking up the product from the manufacturer. I don't use my own funds for the purchase. The buyers finance the deal. So what I do, I get the money from the buyer, I send it to the manufacturer, I said, look, have these products ready. Sometimes they need to make them. It might take 30 days, it might take 15 days. They may not have the products available right away. So that's the reason I asked for a 30% in advance. So I send the money to the manufacturer, the 30% that I receive, and I tell them to have them ready a certain particular time. And then when I receive the other 70% from the buyer, I made all the arrangements so they can pick up from the manufacturer warehouse. This particular model, the export trading company, requires a clear agreement and a strong relationship with your supplier. For example, I asked the manufacturer to send me a letter. In the letterhead, officially designing my company as their authorized representative. In my case, for Latin America and the Caribbean. And I asked them to protect my buyers. I provide the buyer's name to the manufacturer so they won't bypass me and sell directly to them. So where to look for manufacturers? Now, for real estate, is location, location, location. For export management company is trade show, trade show, trade show. Why? You will find in one location dozens of manufacturers that are attracted to your idea of exporting. Don't look any other way. Look for the different type of manufacturing trade shows and go there. Normally, the owner or the general manager will be waiting for you at the trade show. It will be available, something that it will be almost impossible if you try to contact the company on your own. You got too many people in between to get to the owner of the company. But in a trade show, the owner or the general manager or the CEO or the export manager is going to be there waiting for you, eager to help you. Because after all the manufacturers that goes to trade show, they wanted to sell. And finding an export management company that they can trust is going to be very important for them. So they're going to be there for you. Besides the trade shows, I mentioned to you that I go to different companies and I check their products. I go to Costco, Trader Joe's, Dollar Tree, Five and Below, Walmart. I flip the package. I look in the rear labels. and I find the manufacturer and I start creating my list. Now, one important consideration is proximity. I live in Calabasas. For me, in California, for me, any manufacturer within a 2-hour drive is a great fit. It is easier to visit, easier to build trust. The farther away they are, the more complicated it gets when problems arise, and they will arise. Sure, I work with companies in New Jersey, in Florida, and overseas, but nothing beat a face-to-face meeting. As probably everybody knows by now, 70% of the communication is not nonverbal, so I believe in that. I notice that also when I travel to Latin America or Asia and I visit buyers. When I do a face-to-face communications, I close deals faster and they stick together longer. So when you find a manufacturer in a trade show or you get an appointment with them, you got to prepare your pitch. I introduce myself as Carlos Sol from Connections Unlimited. You can say I have been in business for a short time. I have very good connections in supermarkets, discount stores, distributors across Latin America and Africa, Middle East, Europe, whatever place you're planning to sell. Emphasize that you're not going to replace any existing customers the manufacturer might have in that area, that you just want to bring new ones. And let them know that you can handle logistic, registration, and compliance, and that you are looking to build a long-term, profitable partnership. Your main goal is to become their export representative, especially if they're a small or medium-sized company that has very little or no international presence. So these are some of the key questions that I ask the manufacturer when I visit them. Are you selling overseas? Where? Which countries? They're going to be very, in general, they're going to be very open to tell you which countries they are selling, which countries they got problems selling. If they are selling to a very small distributor and they wanted to increase sales. So ask the questions. Do you sell to distributors directly? Do you sell to retailers? That can make a major difference. Have you registered your products in those countries? Many people do not register the products, so they make very small sales and they never grow the market. If you tell them that you know how to register the products for them, they will look at with very open eyes, because very few people know about registration. You can ask them also if they own the trademark there or not, if they have an export department, or if they are happy with their international partners. So ask all these questions, take a lot of notes. Make sure that at the time that you ask the questions, you also talk about your company, mix it up. It's not a questionnaire that you put that person in a corner. It is more like a dialogue that you mixed a little bit of yourself, a little bit of your sales speech, while at the same time you're trying to figure out where that manufacturing is selling or not selling, what the problems have or don't have, and what do they need you. Take a lot of mental notes and digital notes, and at the end, make sure that you get their digital catalog and this and their best prices. Okay, so at the end of the meeting, in a trade show, let's put it in a trade show or in an appointment, personal appointment, you will have to understand at the end of the meeting pretty well what's the status of that manufacturer in the export department, in the export arena, and you will get the catalog and your best export prices. Now, don't mention your commission up front. I noticed that some people say, yeah, I work with a 10% commission, 15% commission, some of them 7% commission. Don't from the beginning, because most of the owners, they don't know very well what implies, especially they don't have international experience, what it implied to export. It takes more time and effort. The sales are not going to be the same that a local market, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So the percentage of you're going to be earning is normally higher than what a salesperson make for a local transactions. Here in the state, 3 to 5% commission is average. International trade, you got to go 10 and up. Okay, most of the time. It will depend. And we can discuss that more if you have any questions, but you got to think about 10 to 15%. If you work as a trading company and you buy and sell, you can actually make a lot more, because if you know the market, you can stretch that margin a lot more. No, I remember once I made a big mistake telling the manufacturer my commission right in the beginning. And he pulled out of the deal. And so he said, yeah, you're making too much. But he didn't understand the cost, the risk, relationship I brought to the table. So I learned the lesson. I talk value, not percentage. So when I ask, normally I tell them, look, just give me your best prices for export. And sometimes the prices for exports are lower than the prices for regular customers in the US. Why? Because some companies, they work with marginal cost. They understand that when they price the cost of a particular item, they take into consideration the variable and the fixed cost. Okay, the variable cost is the cost of making one more item. Talking about in health and beauty, the cost of a bottle, a cap, a label, the product inside, the box, the case. Those are variable costs. Every time you produce one more item, you have to spend that money. The fixed costs are related more with your manufacturing facility. The people, the renting of the place, or the mortgage that the manufacturer pays for having the location, the workers that you have inside, all are fixed costs. Independently that you sell one item or you sell 1 million items, those are costs that you're going to have. So some manufacturers, they already, when they price the cost of the product, they take into consideration both. But for export, they sometimes, not always, sometimes they consider that they already have the fixed cost. These are new extra items that I was not planning to sell when I built my facility. So the only thing that I had to consider is the variable cost and not adding all the full cost of our manufacturing. Also, in that fixed cost is the fixed cost of selling the products in the US, meaning transportation sometimes, paying the salespeople. So you're adding a lot of costs that are not necessary when you export, because the only thing you got to do is put it in your warehouse, and somebody's going to pick it up. They don't need basically a salesperson. They don't need transportation. They don't need anything. So they can get rid of that cost, including marketing cost, because most of the manufacturers, they also has a marketing cost. So they're willing to sometimes use the variable cost, or they call marginal cost, in order to give you a quote, meaning you're going to be getting a lower price than the product in the US. And that makes sense, because you need to get a better price, because you're going to be adding a lot of different expenses exporting that products. You have to add a trucking company that pick up your products at the warehouse, going to the terminal, or going to a freight forwarder that might consolidate with other merchandise and put it in a container, then put it into a vessel. You got to consider the cost of shipping that product from your port to the buyer's port, unloading, paying all the costs related with the unloading of the products going to their warehouse, and only then you can compare that cost with the local cost that somebody sells here and they just pick it up or deliver it to a warehouse here. So in order to be competitive, many manufacturers, they use marginal cost in order to be competitive. You also have to realize that most of the people overseas have lower income than the US. Just to give you an idea, the average income per capita in the US is about $80,000 a year. In most of the country, in the rest of the world, it's $15,000 to $20,000 the income per capita. So the cash that people have to buy your products overseas is not necessarily the cash that people have here in the US. So value is very important. You need to have a product that is perceived as a value product for the consumer overseas. So I normally ask the price list with no commission, FOB their place, because we're going to be going through Incoterms, and believe me, not everybody understands Incoterms very well. Or sometimes I get the price list, put it in a freight forwarder close to the manufacturing facility. I have a company that I work with that they tell me, okay, my cost of this item is $1 in my warehouse. If you pick it up, but I can deliver within 20 miles for the same price. Well, it's good advantage. If you're not going to pick up a full container, I can deliver to a freight forward for the same amount, and they can consolidate in that freight forwarder. Okay? So pricing is important. So just get that pricing. You will be able to negotiate those prices because, as always, price lists are negotiable. okay? It is not written in stone, but it's a good beginning. Don't try to negotiate in advance. Only negotiate when you have an order with you. And so you have leverage to negotiate specific items, because a manufacturer will normally make 100 items and you will sell on average, at least for me, 10 or 20 of them, the most. You're not going to be selling all the products because not everybody likes all the products that you make. So only negotiate prices when you already have an order and you have leverage to do that. Otherwise, take the price list and send it to the people that you know. And we're going to be talking about how you get those people. Now, you got to protect your buyers. Your buyers will pay, and that's the way I structure my relationships. Okay? Different export management companies do it different ways, but that's the way I do it. And again, don't follow me on everything because this is a particular company, but this will give you an idea of what I do and why. I like the relationship open and on the table with the manufacturer, meaning everything is crystal clear from the beginning. What am I going to do? What am I going to bring? Who's going to be handling all the communications? And what kind of agreement are we going to put together? Total transparency, and for me, is the only way to have a long-term relationship with the manufacturer. The only way. And I've been working with manufacturers for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 17 years, 20 years, and 25 years. Okay, so my experience is having long-term manufacturers, because why? Because you're going to be putting a lot of efforts in the first couple of years. And after that, you're going to see those repeat orders coming in and coming in and coming in and going through that. So the big effort is in the beginning. But then if you pick up the right products and you sure do your due diligence in picking up the right area of products that you want to sell and picking up the right manufacturer, you're going to see those orders coming on a regular basis. Okay. So transparency is very important. That means that the buyers can come to the US, they can visit the factory, they can tour the factory, they will know the CEO and the owner of the company. Everything is on the table. Nothing is hidden. Because of that, okay, you have to make sure that when you negotiate in the beginning with the manufacturer, you clarify that that's the way you're going to work with them. So you're going to say, I'm going to send you a list of my buyers to make sure that you know who they are. Okay, and if for any reason they try to go over you, so these people overseas try to go over you, the manufacturer will already have those companies in their system, and it will flag when they will try to connect them directly, or try to do what I call a Mickey Mouse and try to jump over you. So you have to really make sure that this is very clear for the manufacturer and you ask the manufacturer, what is your procedure? Is my buyer contact you directly? How are you going to protect me? And they will answer. Now, let me tell you, I always have basically the same standard answer, okay? Carlos, you don't need to worry about it. We will protect you all the time. That's the way we work in our company and blah, blah, blah. Okay? Because remember, you are going to increase their sale. It is in their best interest for them to hire you. And how can they're not going to protect you if you're going to help them increase their sales overseas and bring them more business and make their company more valuable because now they have an international community that they work with. It makes the company a lot more valuable than if they only sell locally. So they will tell you what will be the procedure, and that's what you write it down. And you make sure, okay, this is going to be the procedure. Yeah, we're going to be putting our system, your name, your company. Don't worry about it. If they call, we will tell you. And you ask them, hey, if they call for any reason, please make sure that you send that call, you handle that call to me so I can handle it. Transfer that call to me so I can handle it. And that's the way 99% of the time you're going to be protected with people from overseas because, believe me, they will try. They will try to jump you sometimes. Okay? So this is the reason the manufacturer is the most important relationship that you have. So now, and you keep repeating the same thing. Okay? If you do it with one manufacturer, you can do it with two manufacturers. You can do it with three manufacturers. You can do it as many manufacturers as you can handle. Okay? So, another thing that you're going to discuss with the manufacturer is how you're going to sell it, the Incoterms. And in my case, I try to make it simple, very simple from the beginning. You can always complicate it, but make it simple. You're an export management company. You don't want complications. You want to do things fast and you want to make money. So you sell X works, meaning the products, the prices you get are the prices that you pick up from the warehouse. I mean, the buyer will pick up from the manufacturer's warehouse that you represent, and they take care of the product from then on. Sometimes also, so the other term that I use is FCA, free carrier, meaning that the company, as I mentioned before, the manufacturer will drop at not extra charge to a particular freight forwarder their products. Okay, and after that, the buyer will take care of everything. When we're talking about the buyers, you are going to understand what kind of buyers am I going to get. So make it simple. S-Works, FCA, or sometimes FOB, free on board, meaning the prices included the products put in the vessel, okay? All the way put in the vessel. I do that when I ship some products from overseas manufacturers. Now, you're going to discuss also samples. Buyers want samples. Hey, I need samples. How are you going to handle those samples? Some of them can be big and heavy, and they're costly. So usually the way I work with the manufacturer is they will send the samples free of charge to any freight forwarder in the US. They normally send it on land. They don't ship it by airplane. And they can live with that. It's just few samples, they put it in a case, and they send it to a freight forwarder in the US. Okay? That would be simple. Then you go through product registration. How good are they in making the documents for product registrations? Some manufacturers are pretty versed and they understand. They know how to get a certificate of resale or a good manufacturing practice. They already have or quality quantity formulas. They already have it because they have a laboratory that do all those documents. But some documents are more difficult to get, and that's what you step in as an export management company, because you're going to know how to find those organizations and deal with them. That makes all the necessary documents for you to export. We're going to see that later on, okay? You also talk about trademarks. And did they trademark or not the products so far? And you're going to be handling that for them. You talk about hazardous items, acetone-based nail polish remover. As I mentioned before, that's a problem. You're talking about minimum orders. What is the minimum order the manufacturer will accept from an overseas buyer? You're going to be a $500, a $5,000, few cases. Are they going to mix cases? Is the minimum a pallet? You will have to deal with all of that in the conversations and the negotiations that you have with the manufacturer. Another thing that I normally do is to ask for the best 10 selling items. That will help you a lot, because these are the products that you're going to pitch at the beginning. Because remember, the manufacturer normally makes 50 to 100 products, but you're only going to be selling 10 to 15. So knowing the best 10 selling items is very important. Another thing that you're going to do in that meeting is a permission to tour their facility, to take pictures, and it's possible a picture with the owner of the company, the export manager, or whoever you're dealing with at that time. Now, any questions so far?
Yeah, I have a couple that were mentioned in your slides. You had something called territory, and the export management company and the manufacturer would presumably agree that you will represent them in the world, or a region, a country, or a province within a country, or something like that. That's one term. You talked about protection against end runs, but the way you were talking about is more an understanding as opposed to a specific, let's say, non-circumvention clause within an agreement. Do you recommend having an explicit clause to that effect? Those are the starters.
Okay.
Exclusive or non-exclusive, and which territory to define?
Well, regarding the territory, you asked me questions a little bit ahead of it, but that's fine.
Oh, that's coming later?
No. But that's fine. Yeah, territories, you always have to define the territory. I normally do. But for me, it's very simple. I'm going to be working in Latin America and the Caribbean market.
Mhm.
These are the areas that I know, that I can relate with, that are comfortable for me to travel. So as an export management company, I want to find which is more convenient for me based on my my knowledge, my understanding, the language, the closimetry, how close they are. I'm going to be putting everything in my equation when I form my company. So some companies, they tell you, hey, you can go to any country. We are not exporting anything. So I put Latin America and the Caribbean market. Some company says, no, I wanted to export to such and such country. I wanted to export to Costa Rica, to Peru, to Chile. But I already have people in Mexico, so please don't touch it. Okay, that's the way it works. So these are questions that you ask, and then I'm going to be talking at the end what to do and what I have done. And again, please don't follow me, okay? Do your own due diligence. It works for me, but it doesn't necessarily might work for other people. So
As far as, you may cover it later, but should you be looking for an exclusive representation or non-exclusive? What would be more comfortable for you and for the manufacturer in the initial relationship?
well, let me see, how far am I from
If you're covering it later, we can skip it.
Yeah, yes. I think I'm going to be covering later, but I would say, based on my experience, because I tried the exclusivity idea with manufacturers, and it's not always well received. Okay, and if they wanted to entertain the idea of exclusivity, they will ask you for ridiculous numbers in cells that you will never be able to make them. Okay, so I have a takeaway on that, and I will tell you about it. Let me
I have
see.
a question. I've had my hand up if I could ask it.
Sure.
I just wanted to hear your personal recommendation at this point. I'm working on forming a export management company and dealing with imports and exports between the U.S. and Africa. So I've been dealing with different farmers in Africa that have commodities. And so I had a buyer ask me about some coffee in Uganda. And so I sourced for it. I didn't have an agreement, a written agreement in place. And so the buyer was able to identify my contact, and then contacted that person directly, and then they started negotiating. So then once I found out from the supplier, from the manufacturer, I said something to the buyer. I said, it's because of my effort that you have this contact, and don't try to cut me out. And so he's saying he won't do that. Once the transaction goes through, he'll make sure I get a percentage. And then he stated the agreed upon percentage, because I have no paperwork and we just have this verbal agreement. What can I do to protect myself, or is this just a lesson learned? And that's that. I want to hear your thoughts on what I could do at this point.
Yes, let me see if I understand correctly your question. You're importing a product from Uganda, correct? So you already have somebody here in the U.S. that wants to buy that product?
The person is not in the U.S., but they want to buy that product, and the source, because they were looking for coffee. So I was able to source it from my farmers in Uganda. And so now the person has gone to contact them directly, and I'm saying, what would be your suggestion to make sure that I get my percentage for setting that up at this point?
So you're talking about in Uganda, you had somebody that had coffee that, and somebody outside the country that you contact first, that contact this company in Uganda for you to get the coffee, correct? And they don't want it. How do you get your commission? Wow.
Yeah, the
Um,
person is in the buyer is actually in Africa in a
Okay,
remote
now,
market.
yeah, I want to know that. I want to know what part. Yeah, okay.
Okay,
So,
so the buyer
you-
is in Africa. This is my personal contact. He asked me if I could help source coffee for him. I did, and now he's
Oh.
gone to my manufacturer, my supplier, to negotiate doing business between them two. So I found out about it through my supplier. And so now I went
Okay.
back to the buyer and said, make sure that I am taken care of because I'm the one that put this together.
Yeah, now I understand. I understand. So I understand what the buyer is. I understand what the seller is, and you are here. Well, this is a very difficult deal to enforce. Okay, because and I'm going to be talking about the distance factor later on. There is no doubt that the most like anything else in life, the most important thing is what kind of relationship you have with the person that you work with. Can you trust them or not? And when you contact the supplier in Uganda, that was the time that you should do sign kind of the agreement in writing. And to be honest, I don't know how far you can enforce that agreement. And that's why I'm saying relationship is number one. Agreements are number two, and a far two. And I will tell you later on why. Because if you got a good relationship, you got no problem. You don't need an agreement. Okay, that person will say, yeah, I already promised Queen Mother Nina to give her 5%, 10%, and I will do it, no matter what. Okay? So if you got that kind of relationship, you don't need a contract. And the contract is something that, in order to be valid, it needs to be enforceable. And sometimes it's impossible to enforce that contract. It's impossible. So in this case, you have to rely in your initial contact and see what you can do. And you got to tell them, one of the things that you can tell them is, please keep me abreast with all the conversations that you have with your buyer. Okay? And you have to tell the buyer the same thing. I want to make sure that you keep me in the loop of all the conversations that you have with my supplier. Okay? That might, and see what happens, because they might say yes, they might say no. And you're going to see how reliable these people are. And that may be that you might be doing business, continue doing business, or you don't. And maybe a hard lesson to learn, or it may work. You never know. But because of the distance, because of the type of relationship we have with them, it's very, very difficult to enforce them. So I hope you pick the right supplier.
we're mostly talking about EMCs that would form in the US to sell American products abroad. Queen Nina may be talking about other sources that are less enforceable. But within the US, and I think Rhonda made this point very clearly as I tried to, you need the EMC needs an agreement with the manufacturer. And part of that agreement should include what we normally would call a non-circumvention clause, non-compete clause, non-disclosure clause, whatever those clauses are, that says if either side attempts to go around me, my agreement protects me and you have to pay my commission anyway. And that's more enforceable in the US. So I think when we talk about EMCs and manufacturer relationship, that agreement is first and foremost, and one of the key provisions in it must be this type of protection against end runs.
And quick question. So in the case of, and I don't think this is that relevant when you're starting off. I mean, I'm sure it is to have some sort of agreement, but just getting your feet wet, you probably won't encounter too many issues. But with the what is it called? Non-circumvention agreement.
Yeah.
So
Clause.
something like, okay, non-circumvention clause. Will you, the legal responsibility in this case will fall upon the manufacturer, even though both parties have to agree to collude without your knowledge.
Mhm.
The manufacturer will be the one that you are representing, therefore they will have to be paying the fee in this case to you or any other
The compensation, if they
Yeah.
violate the clause, you're
Mhm.
still entitled to your commission. You have to go back to that manufacturer and say, you were not allowed to do that. I want my commission. And if they resist, then you have to try to enforce it under US law. But
Yeah.
without that clause, you don't have any leg to stand on, and it's almost inevitable that a buyer or seller will attempt to get around you at some point when they see the value of a two-way relationship instead of a three-way.
I guess maybe, and tell me what your thoughts on this. I guess a way to protect yourself would be essentially to say, okay, well, we've just opened you up for this market in Mexico City, for example, in this small region here in this wealthy suburb. I have connections in Los Lomos, I have connections in La Condesa, and I also have connections in, whatever, Colombia, right? Caracas or something. So, if I'm opening you up in this market, I can also open up your product for these markets as well. So any, attempt to obviously circumvent our agreement will not, be good for our going relationship if you want to go into new markets as well. So I guess like your expertise and trade knowledge in South America will be kind of a hedge against them or a blocker against them trying to do anything behind your back.
Yeah, yes, in a sense. And I'm going to tell you ways that I tried to work with the manufacturers for many years without basically having this type of problems. Okay, but just give me a little bit more time. We will go through in detail. Okay, it's very, very interesting, that part. Another important consideration, going back to your relationship with the manufacturer, one thing that you got to do or discuss with them is how are you going to sign your emails on behalf of that manufacturer? Okay, are you going to sign, like in my case, Connections Unlimited representing company XYZ? Or I am going to sign my emails to the buyers as export manager for company XYZ? Well, I want the second one. Okay. I really want the second one. I want to sign my emails for company AYZ as export manager of company AYC or XYZ. Okay, that gives me instant credibility with the buyers. If I sign as a Connections Unlimited account, I'm just a broker. Okay. So the companies that I work with at one point in that meeting with the CEO, the owner of the company. After I make sure that they bought my proposition, after I make sure that I understand their proposition, I slide into the conversation as your expert representative. I would like to sign my email as an expert manager for company AYC, because that will give me credibility with the buyers and show that I'm working with you. And then you don't say anything and you wait. And they might say 9 out of 10. They have said to me, yeah, not a problem. Okay. So now when I send to my buyers the price list and the prices, I am the expert manager of that company, in a sense. Okay. Sooner or later, they will find out that I am an agent. But by then, it's going to be too late. They're going to be buying from me. Okay. And if I got the okay from the manufacturer, because they trust me, and I did it at the right time, I didn't do anything illegal or anything like that. I just asked for something that they could do that with no problem. And 9 out of the 10 companies that I sell, I sign under their name. Okay? That gives me instant credibility with the buyers. That price list, the catalog, is mainly the official catalog. Okay? If they say no for any reason, and they might have reasons not to allow you to use their name, what you do is you ask them for a letter with their company letterhead that you are, in this case, Connections Unlimited, is the authorized distributor for such and such territory for the company. And remember, I say authorized. I never said exclusive. Okay? And that's the main difference that you have to understand. They authorize you to have the distribution and to work with specific things. And you can even do other things for the company, and you ask for permission. Later on, you don't need to put it in a contract. And this is my way of doing business, I avoid contracts at all costs. And let me tell you why. I used to work for a big company, St. Ives, very well-known company, health and beauty products. They have an agreement that were over 30 pages long. Everybody signed it, the distributor signed it, we signed it, everything was happy with the agreement. But all the agreements have a clause, and that clause says at any time, if any of the partners in this contract wanted to finish the business, they need 60 days in advance to do it. So in theory, anybody with 60 days in advance can do that. So you run out of business, even if you have the biggest contract and you put everything that you want there. And believe me, as soon as you involve the lawyers from both sides, you're losing money, you're losing time, you will never get a decent agreement. So I do it in a different way, that everybody feel comfortable. And that's, I believe that's one of the reasons I've been working with companies for 10, 15, 20, and 25 years. And I never sign a contract with them. Because there are a lot of things that this company value more than the contract. And that's your personal relationship and how you can handle things and how you can bring business to them. Remember, a contract is done by lawyers and they wanted to protect the company. And you wanted to protect yourself. And at the end, it's very difficult to find clear understanding. It will take too long. It will take a lot of money. And at least for me, it didn't work that fine. Now, remember, I'm working with a small and medium-sized companies, and they don't like the lawyers either. They don't like to put a lot of lawyers in between. Okay? So, yeah, you might need them at one point. They are important to understand many, many things. But the longer the agreement, the more difficult to be working with you. And also in the agreement, they normally ask you for a minimum sales that you have to provide the company. They might say, because most of the companies in the US, they have no idea how big the market might be in overseas. They don't know if they can sell $1 million to Mexico or $1 million to little El Salvador in Central America. They have no idea. They have no idea about the market because they never spent the time to understand those things. And that's the reason they need you. Okay? But when it's time to ask you for something, I don't know why, but I found that most of the manufacturers, if I ask for exclusivity, they tell you, yeah, no problem, I'll give you. But you have to sell $1 million per year. Where did you get that number? Are you going to start already fighting with that number? Are you going to start making excuses why it's impossible to get that number? No, you don't want the relationship go that way. So the way I do it with the manufacturer is I ask to be the outright distributor. It doesn't matter if I sell 50,000 or $5 million. It doesn't matter. Okay, I will be with them because I am the outright distributor. And I want, as an outright distributor, the only thing that I ask is they protect my clients. Can they have other outright distributors? Yeah. And I don't care. Why? Because I know my business well, and I know I can do very well. And I know the pie is very big for many outright distributors. But in reality, that company will get very few or none because they didn't have a distributor before. Nobody cares about their product until we, as an export management company, came and said, look, I can sell your products overseas. Okay? So these people are more willing and more open to negotiate with you. They are not looking for a big contract. Now, if you're working with medium-sized and multinational companies, that's a completely different story. Okay? And I'm trying to get into their shoes because I don't know them very well. But I know those contracts are big and you have to follow to the letter. Now, for a small company, it doesn't work that way. Okay? It's more about relationship and how you build it and how you structure it from the beginning with them. Okay, to make sure that you do not oversell yourself. You don't ask for exclusivity things from the beginning. You're not asking to, or you're not telling them that you're going to sell millions of dollars. You just want to be an outright distributor and sell their products overseas. And then it will depend on you and your work, on how hard you work, how much money they're going to make and you're going to make. And you can have that relationship ongoing, like I mentioned before, for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. I don't think I could survive a major contract. I'm telling you right now. And these companies are not that small. Some of them are $50 million companies. Sometimes some of them are $100 million company. They sell very well. But when you get into contracts, and I remember one of the companies at one point, after 20 years of working without a contract, they sent me a contract. And I never signed it. And they're still with me. Okay? They're still working with me. But I will never sign that contract because that contract was completely one-sided contract. And I will never sign it. I prefer to lose a company than not to sign it. So I didn't do anything. I slid it under the rug, and we're still working together. Been with that company for 25 years. Okay? So don't look into the legal system to save you. Look in yourself to save yourself. And one of the ways to do it in how you structure the meetings and how to structure the negotiations. We're talking about now with the manufacturers. Now I'm going to tell you how to structure my negotiations with the distributors. But let's finish with the manufacturers, okay? Now, at the end of that meeting, after you talk about all these subjects, you just tell them, look, thank you very much for everything. It's been a great meeting. I'm going to summarize our conversations in an email. I'll send it to you. Please just okay it at the end. So I will work on that negotiation. I will work on that email. I will make sure that I put all the points that I discussed with the owner of that manufacturing facility or CEO, whoever I'm negotiating with. And I will write that email and send it to them, and I will sign it as an export manager for SYC company. And then you wait. And if they say, okay, you got a company. Because they were willing to risk a little bit on you, and you're willing to risk a little bit of them, because you're going to put your time and money on that company for a long time, and they don't have anything going overseas, and they know you might be able to be a good ticket for them, because their company is going to be more valuable, because now, well, they're in business international. They're now an international company, okay? So you have to negotiate that part. It's a very delicate negotiation, but if you structure it right, you will get it. Now, if you can do it with one company, you can do it with other manufacturers. And that depends on you and how big you wanted to increase your sales and your income. And because there are a lot of available companies, you're going to see them all at the trade show when we discuss about trade shows. Any questions on this? Okay. So again, if they give you the okay for the email, you got the basis to start with that manufacturer. As I mentioned, I don't sign any contracts, and I'm still working with companies for many years. Now, in my 25 plus years of working in this business, I had good times and bad times. And you have to understand, like any other company in the world, export management companies go through different periods where you start getting manufacturers and people buy from you and you're very happy with. And there are other times that it seems like the global trade is going down the toilet. And it happens to me during the pandemic. Okay. I lost mainly 4 manufacturers in the terms of a year and a half. They couldn't bear the problems of the pandemic. But thanks God, the pandemics don't happen that often. But it really make a hit in my income. So I had to start again. And thanks God, I already had 3 more, and coming back pretty soon. So I'm happy with that. But things can go very well, and things can go bad, and you have to be ready to go through the ups and downs like any other business. Okay. Now, another takeaway is traveling overseas. Okay, so before we find a distributor, oh, by the way, after you send the email to that manufacturer and they give you the okay, celebrate. It's your first manufacturer. Now you got work to do. Okay, but don't go overboard. This is just the beginning. Now again, before I go into the distributors, I had to get them a note. Traveling overseas. Because before finding a distributors, I would like to dedicate a few minutes to tell you how I schedule my trips overseas. Everybody's different, but this is what I do. I travel to Latin America on a Sunday. I pick the country, let's say Costa Rica, travel on a Sunday. I arrive on a Sunday. And from LA to that country. And I work Monday and Tuesday. I can see a distributor in the morning, a distributor in the afternoon, and I stay there for a couple of days. Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, I schedule my other trip to another country. Okay, and I take the whole day for that trip. But normally the countries are pretty close to each other, within 2 hours in Latin America, and that's another reason why I like to work in this territory. So I take the day to travel and catch up with things. Okay, so I'm sorry. Did anybody say anything?
No.
Oh,
Go-
okay. So then I work on the other country Thursday and Friday. I look for other. I meet with other 4 distributors, morning and afternoon, 1 at each. So in a week, I can see 8 different distributors in 2 different countries. And then, of course, I take the Saturday and Sunday for me. I want to see and do some experience. I visited a volcano, got into a zip line across tropical forest, eat in a typical place, going to the beach, whatever relax me. So that's my typical trip when I go overseas. And I travel back to LA on Monday. Okay, I take an extra day. Sometimes I travel for 1 week or 2 weeks, depending on need. And I also like to travel on spring and autumn, avoiding tourism, harsh weather, and high prices. So that's the way I structure my traveling overseas. Just to give an idea, of course, you can do something else, but this is the way I do it.
Could I make one comment?
Sure.
A number of countries have holidays that we don't have. And so if you schedule your trip to be there on Monday and Tuesday, only to find out, because you didn't know beforehand, that they're having a holiday on Monday or Tuesday. You want to make sure you look at a website that says, here are all the holidays of the world.
Yeah, that's the reason I structure all my meetings in previous days, and I got the okay from the buyers. So if they're okay with that day, that's fine. And you remind me that one time, yeah, they gave me the okay to be there at that time, and it was a holiday, but the distributor took care of me that day, as he promised.
Mm.
So, and that's another thing how you work with distributors, because at least in Latin America, the people are very, very joyful in helping you on things. So they might send a car to pick you up at the airport. They will tell you about a hotel. They will recommend you hotels where to go, and they will tell you how to do the basic things so you can get to their place of business. Or they might pick you up from the airport. So people in general are very dependable. These are business people. They want your business, and they will treat you the right way. Okay. Let's go to slide number 6. I don't know, we're doing fine with the time, but let's continue. Are we in slide number 6, finding the right distributor? Sandra? Okay.
That's slide 10.
Well, yeah, for me, sorry, I have a different number here.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay, finding the right distributor. For me, I started with distributors that I already knew from my previous experience in the export company. But at one point, I ran out of them. And I ran, or the manufacturer needs a different type of buyer. So I put together a plan to get distributors overseas, in my case, in Latin America and the Caribbean market. So this is what I'm looking for distributors. Okay, number one, I target distributors that are financially sound. They are importers and also distributors, not just resellers or wholesalers. And the reason is, we're talking about international business. This can get very complicated if you don't have the right partners, or if you don't pick the right partners. I always pick distributors that they already know how to import the products. So I don't need to do it. And there are many of them in each country. And they're all looking for bargains from the US. They just don't have the time or the travel experience to find it, and that's where you, as an export management company, come in. But they have to know how to import the products, and they also have to know how to distribute those products. And that distribution, I also look for national distribution. I don't want them to sell in just one city or one province. I want somebody that had national reach. They have product registration expertise, and they have an in-house or third-party logistics. I don't want somebody that is pretty new and they have no idea, because I have many of them, and it's very difficult to work with them. Because sooner or later, either they don't have the money, they don't have the capability, or they run out of gas, basically. So you try to help, you try to do everything for them, and they go nowhere. So another thing is most of the buyers will ask you immediately that they want the exclusivity. Hey, big guys that they're financially sound, they have national reach, they want exclusivity. They don't just want it to be part of it. And just be one more in that country. And you explain to them how this is going to work with them. And the number one thing that I tell my people is that, look, if you perform, I will help you to make sure that you're gonna be the only one here. But you have to perform because the manufacturer has to be happy. If they're not happy, everybody, there's a problem for everyone. But I will do my best. And this is after I build my relationship with them. But that's the way I negotiate with them. I will help you to be the only one. Okay? And that's the way I've been doing it. And I have the same distributors for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, and some of them for 20 years. Because I do my best for them to be the exclusive. And I have experience, and I'm going to tell you an experience about that, okay, that I have. I was hired by a dental company 7 years ago. And they start selling to Latin America. They have an in-house export manager, and they were selling pretty good. This person was doing a good job. And one day decided to travel all the countries, and the sales went up dramatically. Everybody was happy. And one day, for no reason, sales are going to drop, and they drop, and they drop. And they finally have no sales to Latin America. They were trying to figure out what happened. How our products that are selling very well in the US went from selling very well in Latin America to almost nothing. So I started working with them. I started calling all the buyers and trying to figure out what happened. And what the company did, this export person that was working for the manufacturer did when they traveled overseas, is in order to look good for the manufacturer, they start selling to every single people that would buy their products. So they turned the market into a craziness of products, an overflow of products. Of course, the sales went up dramatically, but none of the distributors were happy because they were not making any money. So they look for other opportunities, as that's what distributors do. They move. If they don't like your products, they don't like who you are, they don't like the relationship with you, they have other chances because they're big, they're important. They want to deal with people that are going to have a good relationship. They're going to have products that they're going to make money. They don't want everybody to sell their own, the same products that they do. And you have to understand that, especially in small countries. You know, we're talking about El Salvador, Costa Rica. These are countries that have less than 10 million people each. You know, they're smaller than Los Angeles. Everybody knows each other very well. You cannot sell to everyone. You have to pick the right one. And why not picking up the best from the beginning? So financially sound, national reach, and building the performance on the relationship, not just contracts. and grow with them. So let's talk a little bit more about it. Why? Another thing that I want about the distributor is that they have experience with similar products. They must be familiar with your type of products and how they import it. They should know how to work with a custom house broker and not just with a freight forwarder. And I'm going to tell you the difference for people that I'm not familiar with. If as an exporter in the US, I use freight forwarders. These are companies that help you to export the products. The buyer use customs house broker to import the products. Okay? There are many customs house brokers that are also freight forwarders and vice versa. Okay, so the term is used sometimes indistinctly, but there are two different functions. One is more concentrate on the export, the other one on the import part. Okay. Now, these companies, because they are big enough, they have a custom house broker that work with them in that country. Let's put it Costa Rica, okay? Just to give you an example. So they know somebody at customs that know how to import the product from the US. And that custom house broker also have a freight forwarder in the US as their agent, all the same companies sometimes, okay, have different agencies in different countries. So that's what I like, because I want to deal with only one freight forwarder that will do the job, the whole job from beginning to end. And that transportation, going overseas, taking care of the ocean freight, taking care of everything in between, I want to make sure that they know how to do it and do it very well. I don't want to do it. I want to make business. I want to buy and sell, connecting buyers and sellers, and sell the heck out of it. And let other people to work around those things because they already have that. And these big companies overseas, they all deal with custom house brokers. They all deal with a freight forwarder in the US. And they know, most of them, how to import from the US. Okay? I want the freight forwarder taking care of the tracking, the steamship line coordination, the documentation, and everything in between. I don't want to do it myself, or I want to do the minimum myself to make sure that everything is done the right way. That's it. That's my job. Unless, and I have few cases where I need to be involved and I have to export, but I minimize those cases. I don't like to work with those companies. They are too small. They don't understand. It's a lot of work for me. I don't need it, really. I don't need that. So also the buyer overseas, they have to know how to do the product registration process. Okay, because many distributors, they don't know how to do it overseas, but the big companies, they do. They have an in-house area where they work on all the products, or at least they hire somebody that do that. Or sometimes they have a third-party company, legal company, that help them to work with the government and register all the products that they're going to import. And you remember that we spoke about certificate of free sale, quality quantity formula, certificate of analysis. Those are the requirements of each government in each country. And I will produce it here, working with the manufacturer. I will send it to them, and they will do the rest. Okay? because they do know how to import these people. Regarding the trademark, as I mentioned, I'll do the trademark as an export management company with the mandate of the manufacturer. I do it for them in their name, okay? Because there is not a U.S. trademark, there's not international trademark, meaning that if you have a trademark in the U.S., it doesn't mean that trademark will work in other countries. The best thing you can do is to go with an organization called WIPO, which is a World Intellectual Property Organization, and register with them. That's it. That's the only thing you can do. Because if there is a problem at one point, you can say, hey, I at least I have registered my brand with the WIPO. But you also need to register your trademark in each and every country. And but there are companies that do that. There are third-party companies, and you can do it with no major deal, and it's not that expensive. So you have to do that. You have to register the trademark, but the manufacturer has to do it, or you as a export management company should do it in their behalf, okay? So the manufacturer keep control of the trademark. I was planning to do it after, but
Do you need any like a legal, do you need to hire anybody from like a legal background to help you with the trademarking process? Or is it relatively
Yes.
simple?
No, you need somebody to do it in
Okay.
their country, because you remember there are different laws. The laws in Latin America are not the same as the laws in the US, and each country has different requirements. So,
And the
no,
manufacturer pays for that trademark, I'm assuming.
correct. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, the US manufacturer would have a patent attorney or a trademark attorney or a copyright attorney that would arrange to file for the intellectual property rights in all of the individual countries. They know how to do that under the various conventions.
Well, if you do that, you're going to pay a lot of money. If you do it through a, that's another advantage of of our type of company, an export management company. If you do it through me, you're going to find that it's a lot cheaper.
Oh, okay. If you offer that, I don't know that every export management company offers those intellectual property rights capabilities or services, but if they do or you do, that's great.
Correct. And that's one of the things that you have to pack everything in your favor. And one of the things are product registrations and all the legal requirements, in this case, the trademarks. And I know how to do it. I have third parties in different countries that do the job, and they do it inexpensively, and they do it fast. And sooner than later, the manufacturer will have their own certificate of a trademark. So the other thing,
Get back to something earlier you were discussing about
sure,
how many distributors in a country, and you were saying in the Latin American countries, one distributor could cover the entire country and they wouldn't welcome competing distributors. But there are some countries like perhaps Canada, China, and others where you might need a distributor in the French-speaking part of Canada and another one in all on the western, Vancouver side of Canada. Or in China, you might need to have more than one distributor to cover the different provinces.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Mm.
I was speaking in general.
Yeah, Latin
But
America.
yeah, that I appreciate that you brought that up. For big countries like Mexico or Brazil or Argentina, maybe Colombia, you might need more than one distributor, and that is right. because the country is so big, only one distributor will not make it. But you have to make sure that both of the distributors are not going to be competing with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to create frictions that will cause problems in the future. So if you do it right, yes, you can actually do two things. You can have more than one. You can have 2 or 3 distributors as long as they sell to different distribution, I would say, systems. One might sell to retailers, another one might sell to wholesalers. That's fine. You can also segment it by products. One distributor might sell product ABC, and the other one will sell products CXY. So that's fine. So you can segment it in different areas, but the most important thing is to make sure that they don't step into each other's shoes.
Okay, so then assuming you have 2 different distributors, let's say you have 2 different distributors in Mexico selling the same product, but one of them is in Juarez and the other one is in Mexico City. If they don't overlap, so let's say you went with the first distributor, you started to expand someone's product into that territory. Would you be able to negotiate with the manufacturer and say, hey, look, we've done very well in Mexico City. I have another potential market for you. Can we increase my my rate because now we're moving more volume? Or do you generally stick with the original contract value and expand outwards?
It will depend. First, I will talk with my main distributors and asking, can you export in this area? And if they cannot do it, yeah, I'm going to be honest. All of them will always tell you, yeah, we will do it. Okay, because they don't want any competition. So you have to understand very well. You have to have enough information, let's say, to make a decision yourself. And after you have that information, speak with the original distributor and say, look, are you going to sell to this area? They might say yes. Okay, so you ask more specific question. How many trucks are you going to put in there? How many salespeople are they going to devote it? And if they don't give you the right answers, you go ahead. I mean, you want to continue selling, and it might be an overlap. It's impossible not to be an overlap. I mean, business is not exact science. Okay, so it might be an overlap, but you smooth it out, and that's what you are as an export management company. Is that one of the things that you need to do?
I guess what my question was, Carlos, more specifically, is if I'm distributing a manufacturer's product, or if I'm connecting them with a distributor, or the manufacturer with a distributor in another country, sales are going really well, and then I find another opportunity to widen the scope of the distribution to other regions. Will I be able to negotiate again with the manufacturer to say, okay, I'd like a higher percentage based on the fact that we're moving more volume? Or do you think that sours the relationship with the manufacturer?
The volume, because that's what you do at the beginning. At the beginning, you try to get your best pricing. People can adjust in 1 or 2 products. I mean, the manufacturer will adjust in few products, but they're not going to give you a big discount because you sell more products necessarily. Okay. At one point, if you find the right opportunity, you might be able to negotiate. It's not going to sour. Nothing is going to sour a good relationship unless you're doing it the wrong way. If you do it, I would say if you got tact, you know how to do it, and you know the relationship well, you can always ask for lower prices. I try to do it most of the time. Sometimes the distributor, they asked me for lower prices. And I had to negotiate with the manufacturer. And I'm going to discuss that and how I do it pretty soon. So
Okay. Sorry, one more question, if you don't mind, on the legal part. So, are there any other intermediaries that need to be involved, that need to be paid in order to export? So, for example, the lawyers need to make the contracts. Are there any like logistics professionals or like supply chain managers who need to get paid to help you like analyze the market, make sure that the right people are being like what are there any other intermediaries that need to be paid besides just the lawyer to do trademarking and look at all the contracts?
no, basically no. Basically no. The only thing that I have are agents, but that's within my company.
Okay.
I have agents in different countries that help me to find opportunities or help me with a particular client. But besides that, no, it's pretty straightforward. You sell like you're selling in the US, but you're adding a freight forwarder in between. And then the lawyers that do all this legal side that we've been talking about, product registration and trademark. And I'm talking about my products, my type of products. There might be other products that may be more complicated. Okay. So again, picking out the right products is very important.
For example, more complicated might be products that come under national security export controls, where you
Exactly.
have to, obtain a validated export license for a military or product that falls under the dual use requirements. If your product is hazardous or might have pests in it, usually the freight forwarder can identify the organizations and help you obtain the necessary permissions in those regards. But other than the export controls, I don't think that you need to go beyond the normal, people you would rely on as your partners for export management.
You're talking when you say dual use, what do you mean by dual use? You're talking about like arms manufacturers, things like that, or
Where a product could be used for a civilian purpose or a military purpose.
okay.
Yeah, like night vision goggles, you can use
Yeah.
right here, that's fine, or you can use it overseas to kill Americans. That's dual use.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maurice. The other thing that you have to see in a distributor is that they have the logistic capability. They might have a warehouse space and systems to unload container. They need to have a forklift, a dock height platform to align the trailer and the container. They might need this to store the good properly. There might be products that are climate sensitive. Sometimes product overseas, stickers in their corresponding language need to be added and translated, and is required by law. So they might need to do it. And one of the ways to do it, many people do it, they're doing it in a free zone. Okay, most of the countries outside the US and the US have free zones. These are areas where you can stage your products without paying the tariff and any import tax, while you change the products, add labels, or even manufacture within that zone without paying any importation duties or taxes. You only pay those after you take it out of that zone and you go through customs. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the free zone as soon as I finish few other things. Now, another characteristic that the distributor has to have, if and I mentioned before was the marketing power and the financial strength. They must have proven marketing success with similar products. They should be able to launch your line of products and be able to position them in the shelf in the right stores. And again, they should be financially strong because we're going to dedicate also one slide to talk about financial payments, okay, overseas. So you need to find that type of distributor. If you find them, your job is going to be much, much easier, okay? Now, where do you find all distributors? Well, in my case, all clients, referrals. I have agents that I work together with me. They found me distributed overseas. But number one thing is trade shows. Believe it or not, in the trade shows, you're going to find a lot of distributors overseas. They already have the relationship with the US. They're already bringing products from the US. And why not talking with them? Sometimes I ask, hey, where are you from? You know, and that's where the conversations start. And I exchange my card with them. Now, let's talk about trade shows. The trade shows that I know, I'm going to tell you the trade shows that I know and some other trade shows that might be interesting for you. ASD Market Week in Las Vegas. This is a trade show that I normally go. There are discount products and variety products, a lot of wholesalers there. It's a great way to start your export management company because you're going to see a lot of manufacturers and distributors there. And the show doesn't cost you a cent. So register because there's one coming up soon in August. For me, Cosmoprof, it's a health and beauty trade show. It's very important. They have this trade show in Italy, Hong Kong, Miami, Vegas, India, Thailand. Great show to go. PLMA show, the private label product show. It's one of the biggest private label show in the country. And it's in Chicago. I've been there many times. Just make sure that you have enough clothing because it's very cold when they do it. But it's a great show. A lot of companies that can not only sell their own products, but they can also do private label for you. Meaning they can design a particular product with a particular label for a niche market. The Canton Fair in China, I've been there, general show. It's just an amazing show. A lot of companies in one place. The CES show, the Consumer Electronics Shows. Another big show. SIAL America, Food and Beverage Show. Another show, the Natural Products Expo West. Okay, the Fancy Food Show. They do gourmet and ethnic food. The New York Now Show. It's a gift, lifestyle, and home type of show business. There's another one called International Franchise Expo. They're dealing with all franchises. And the IMTS show in Chicago for industrial equipment. So that's another way to get distributors. They're gonna be there. They're gonna be looking. And you might sell them other things that they cannot find. Of course, always the US government help. And for that, Maurice knows this very well and in detail. The US government service international buyers products. They can bring together foreign buyers, schedule on one-on-one B2B meetings, and they cover all industries and countries. So that's a great help to find distributors.
Yeah, Mike, I'd like to mention, since you raised that, and this program is supported by a grant that we're managing, for the limited period that this grant applies, and it's running out in 2 or 3 months. If you're looking as an EMC in behalf of your manufacturer, looking to penetrate foreign markets by finding a distributor or an agent, or by attending a show, or doing a single company promotion, or any number of other activities you would do to promote your client's product, those fees that the Commerce Department charges, normally we pay for under the grant. So as I said, the grant's going to run out in 2 or 3 months. So if you're already very close and have a manufacturer to represent, you want to get in on that on those benefits.
Great.
You can contact me or Simona Rasek, as shown on the screen here, for more details.
Thank you, Maurice. Another source is my agents. As I mentioned before, I have agents in Colombia. I used to sell to the biggest Colombian supermarket chain. I have a presence in El Salvador. I sell to big dollar stores in El Salvador. And I have another agent that covers Florida for me, because Florida is very well interrelated with Latin America. A lot of people go to Florida to buy products. And I also have an agent in Mexico. So agents are important also in getting distributors. Now, again, when you already have your distributors, if you work with large corporations that like Walmart in Mexico, you're going to see that you got to keep the current contact, the contact current, because the buyers at big corporations, they change quite often. So you need to find who they are and how to contact them. And now we're going to be navigating the sales process, okay? Selling internationally, it is not just about the products. You're selling your company as an export management company and your services. And more importantly, you're selling yourself as a reliable partner, business partner. Every step matters, from your first call to your latest shipment. Now, you have to perfect your sales tool. You have to refine your sales speech. You have to be clear, concise, and professional. Make sure your catalog, pricings, and terms are easy to understand. Give me 1 second, please. That you know which are the minimum quantities, which are the payment terms, the Incoterms, and how the logistic is going to work for them. So when you talk to the buyers and you're selling your products, you have to discuss all of that. You have to discuss the Incoterm. As I mentioned before, I try to make it easy for them, and I only sell S work, FAC, free shipping, and FOB. I avoid at all costs CIF, and never DDP. So you can do it, you can always do it, but I try to avoid that because they're very complicated, take a lot of time, a lot more time. And you normally don't make money on the logistics. Buyers think in general that you should be doing the logistics yourself. So since they normally think that way, and logistic prices are easy to understand and easy to know, you don't want to do something that, number one, it takes a lot of time, and number two, you are not going to make any money on it. So that's the reason I make sure that my buyer know how to use their own freight forwarder. Now, if you're new in the business and you already have some contacts overseas, I have a simple script. Let's say I look for a company, I look companies that buy perfumes in Argentina, and I find few of them. So I call them up, and what do I say? Well, hello, my name is Carlos, calling from California. I am an export manager for company XYZ, a perfume company, very successful in the US. We're expanding to new countries, and we're looking for the right distributors. I would like to send you my catalog and price list. May I speak with the person in charge of international purchasing? And that's the way I do it. It's a simple way. There's nothing magic on it. You just do it time and time again. Now, one of the important things that you have to deal is the secretary at the other end, and make sure that you get a good relationship with the secretary, because she is the gate opener to the higher ranking management people that might be able to help you at the end. So if you're gonna get the right person from the beginning, make sure that you know their name, and when you call them back, show appreciation, and sooner or later they will get you to the right person, and that's the way you get also new buyers. Approach with humility, especially in a new industry or market. If you speak the language or have experience, you will probably move faster. Is no, go steady, slow and steady. Okay. Never send lengthy questionnaires up front, like, hey, I wanted to know more about your company and what you do. Google that company, find out as much as you can of the company overseas. Because more than anything else, you want a two-way conversation to share value, so they understand you are here to help them to get the right products for them, and this is going to be a long-term relationship. Okay. Once they like your products and see that you're reliable, the relationship can accelerate quickly. Okay. So what is the sales cycle? After you send the pro forma, the prices, you discuss with them, they are interested, they're going to be putting an order. They will send the order to you. And what you do, you send that order, and that's the way I do it. I send the order to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer issue a pro forma. They send it back to me, and I send it to the buyer. So that pro forma has the company logo, the manufacturing logo. It's a real pro forma. Everybody knows who is the buyer. Everybody knows who is the seller. Everybody's clear and transparent that this relationship is with the manufacturer. Within the pro forma, you have the payment terms. So that had to be clear. They accept the pro forma. And then you start working with the manufacturer to ship the order. One of the things that you have to discuss with the buyer is to make sure that they give you the freight forwarder here in the US. They give you the name of the freight forwarder. They give you the telephone number, the contact person. You contact them and you just said, look, I have an order for you, for your buyer, let's say in Costa Rica. And they will know because the buyer in Costa Rica already contacted them and they're going to say, look, I have an order in California. So after that, the freight forwarder do all the booking with the steamship line and they send the buyer the bill of lading. You don't receive any of that. The only thing that you send to the buyer is the final invoice. Of course, depending on the terms that you negotiated, you get paid in advance, which is my favorite way of selling, or you get paid in 30 or 60 days, depending on the negotiation that you have done, okay? And after you get the money, and the manufacturer get the money, not you, the manufacturer get the money, within 2 weeks, because that's another thing that you negotiate when you sit down with the manufacturer, that within 2 weeks after they get the money from the buyers, you get your commission. Sometimes it takes longer, let me tell you, but that's the way you negotiate it. And then you repeat. You repeat with every order the same procedure, okay? Always use clear, easy to understand language in the pro forma. Many importers speak English, but don't assume they're 100% fluency. Okay. Are we okay with the time?
Yeah, we have 10 minutes for Q&A if there are any questions. It's a lot to plow through in 4-hour sessions.
Okay. I might need something to eat. Okay, let me see. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay. Let's go to a slide. My next slide is mastering export finances. Financing. Now, again, as an export management company, you don't dwell too much on terms and conditions. I love cash in advance. Most of the time, cash in advance, or 30% in advance, 70% upon picking up the product. And because I'm working with the strong companies that have strong financials, they don't have the problem to put the money up front. But in certain cases, especially for big companies overseas, they want terms. And there are several ways of working with terms in financing. And I concentrate only in 2 of them, okay? And we're going to discuss them because there are many others. But I 99%, I would say 100% of my sales are within those 2 terms, either cash in advance or letter of credits. And I have a lot of experience in letter of credits. And my takeaway is that they are complicated, they are expensive, and they are full of traps. Bank charges fee for everything, issuing the letter of credit, advising the letter of credit, confirming the letter of credit, checking documents. And believe me, the banks never lose. They charge you every discrepancy, no matter how small it is. It only benefits the banks. you have to deal with terms like revocable, irrevocable, confirm, and juggle strict deadlines and document accuracy and correct timing. A delay in a vessel can cost you a lot of extra money in bank fees, and you must repeat the process for every single shipment. I've done it for many years. It is overwhelming. Overwhelming. So it's not the way that I structure myself when I have open accounts. The way I do it is through standby LCs. Okay, what it is in a standby LC? An standby LC is a letter of guarantee from a foreign bank that guarantee you that you're going to get paid if the buyer don't. So normally, if the buyer is pretty big, they can go to their bank, let's say in Ecuador, okay, change the country. They can go to their bank in Ecuador, and normally big companies work with big banks. So you don't need to worry much about the bank going under, okay? So these banks are very well regulated. You don't hear banks going down in most of the country. There are countries, a few countries that they do, but in general, not in Latin America and not at this time. So the countries are pretty, the banks are pretty strong. So they issue what they call a standby LC. That is a letter of guarantee. That you open it and you request it for a year. For 1 year, that letter of guarantee is valid. And you do it hoping you will never use it. Okay? Because if you use it, meaning that the buyer didn't want it to pay. So I never had to use a standby LC, but I have it, and that's the way I sleep sound, knowing that if in one case my buyer don't pay it, the bank will. And this letter renew automatically every year if you don't cancel it. So you just want to make sure that you have a constant standby LC. So let's say your buyer forecast purchasing $30,000 a month. I request a 30-day term. So you ask the buyer to go to his bank and send you a standby LC in the name of the manufacturer. Okay, not to you, unless you want to act as a trading company. So you take possession of the merchandise and you invoice the products. In that case, the standby LC will be to your name, in this case, Connections Unlimited. But normally I do it with the manufacturer that I'm working with. So they open up this standby LC, let's say for $65,000. And I know I can ship 30,000 every month, and that the buyer will pay me every month, 30 days. And the buyer normally do pay you 60 days. Why? Because they have a strong relationship with their bank. They don't want to mess it up with their bank, because the bank is guaranteeing for him the payment of that LC. And in order to open up the LC, the bank asks the buyer certain guarantees. For example, the bank want to make sure that the buyer has enough money in their bank. So they will feel comfortable, or they have assets in the bank. So they will feel comfortable to open up the LC to a foreign manufacturer, okay? So again, since most of the companies are reputable and they work with reputable banks, there is not a problem with getting a standby LC. You know, the bank, even an overseas bank, will pay for. But you can also do that. You can also ask a bank in the US to accept that standby LC, and that give you an extra layer of security. Okay, in case the bank overseas go under, the U.S. bank will do it. Okay, because the U.S. bank knows it have a relationship with the bank in Ecuador, so they know it's a good bank, and they say, yeah, no problem, I confirm it. If the bank in Ecuador don't pay, I will pay. Of course, you have to pay more money for that. The bank will not do it for free, but that's fine. Some people do it. I don't so far. But again, don't do what I do, okay? If you want to do it, just pay for it. It will make you sleep better at night. Why this is important? Because with a standby LC, you can ship constantly without going through all the documentation of a single letter of credit, okay? That will put you in a pantanal, basically. Every time you work with them, you're going to spend a lot of time and money. But the standby LC I found is the best deal around, okay? Another way to protect yourself when you give credit, and again, Maurice is going to know a lot more than me, is the export credit insurance when you ship US-made products, okay? The export credit insurance from the Export-Import Bank will help you. And if you want to summarize it for me, Maurice, I would really appreciate it. I can say it, but you know better than me.
Sure. Well, that could be done fairly fast because we don't have more time. But basically, let's say the buyer wants even more time to pay 30, 60, or 90 days on open account, and you're worried about the risk. You go to the Export-Import Bank. For less than 0.5%, you can insure against the buyer's default. So if at the end of the 30, 60, 90 days, the buyer fails to pay for whatever reason, the Ex-Im Bank will pay up to 95% of the transaction value. And so you don't have to worry about buyer default, given the advantage of being able to offer terms that are more interesting and attractive than a letter of credit, where they have to pay basically on delivery. So I think we better stop there. If anybody has any follow-on questions, they can direct them to Sandra or me. I think our contact information is, or to Carlos, specifically about export management companies. But if your question deals more broadly with the grant, Regional Export Training and Assistance Program, and how you can still get in on it as a new to export, or a new export manager with a client that you represent and a product that you represent, those are all possibilities, as long as that product is at least 51% of U.S. origin and you are a California-based company. So yes, this will be recorded. Along with the 8 other 3.5-hour sessions that we recorded previously in our series of 8 weekly workshops covering many, many different topics. So I encourage you all, if you missed any of that great information, to go to the website, find where the recordings are, and you can look at those at any time. So if there are no further questions, it's been a long haul. Kirk Carlos has been very generous with his time, even though we were paying him a little bit, not much. But he's conveyed a lot of great information that you're not going to find anywhere else from practical experience. Okay, if there are no final questions, we're gonna just cut it off right here. Thank you.
Okay,
very
well, hold on one second. We're going to continue or just this is the end of it?
Of what? This is the,
Well, I thought, oh, it's 1 o'clock. You know, I was looking, I am very, very sorry that we missed this part. But if I may have 5 more minutes, I'm going to tell you a story that summarizes why I am in international trade. Is that
Good.
okay? We have
Yeah,
5 more
good.
minutes?
if anybody can't stick around, feel free to drop off, but his story might be very interesting.
Okay. One of the reasons I truly love international trade and what makes being an export management company so rewarding is moments like the one that I'm going to tell you right now. Years ago, I spotted a promising product line at a discount store. After a bit of research, I tracked down the company in Santa Clarita. I sent emails, made phone calls, following up again and again, but I had no response. So one day I decided to go old school. I just show up, no appointment, no invitation. I walk in. I introduced myself and told them, look, I believe I can sell your products in Latin America. The company was run by a Jewish father and son. At first, they were polite but skeptical, but little by little, I started bringing them real orders, and soon they were thrilled. One of my buyers was a Palestinian-owned company in Panama. After a few successful shipments from this manufacturer in Santa Clarita, they decided to visit the facility. So they traveled from Panama to Los Angeles. I set up an appointment with them, and one morning we all met. 2 Jewish owners, 3 Palestinian business partners, and me, a Catholic turned businessman. After a factory tour, we sat down in a conference room to discuss how to grow our business. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the negotiation, all 3 Palestinians' phone rang at the same time. It was time, it was the call to prayer. 2 of them quietly turned pacemaker and began to pray right there in the same room. Meanwhile, the rest of us, 1 Palestinian, the 2 Jewish owners and myself, kept the negotiation going, speaking softly and respecting the moment. It was surreal, but in the best possible way. 6 people from completely different backgrounds, Jewish, Muslim, and Catholic, all in one room doing business, showing mutual respect and building something that would last. And it did last. It lasted for over 15 years until the company was eventually sold. Even today, I'm still working with both sides on other projects. That day taught me more than any textbook or business course ever could. In international trade, success often comes not just from selling products, but from understanding people. And that probably is my message. So if you're ready to build your export management company, please contact me. I'll be more than glad to work with you because believe me, there are a lot more things that I couldn't cover today that is in my backpack that I'm sure you will be able to relate to. So thank you very, very much. And thank you very much, Maurice, for giving me the opportunity one more time, and Sandra for coordinating this workshop. Thank you all. And all the participants, of course.